Ready to go? We're waiting for Leslie. Oh, I know. I said we're waiting for Leslie. We're not going to start until you come up.
I'm having serious conversations out there.
Of course you are. How not?
Okay.
Okay, everyone. Welcome to our September 30th special council meeting. Roll call, please. Ms. Mara.
Mayor Gilman.
Here.
Mayor Gilman.
Here.
Councilmember Whitman.
Here.
Councilmember Maine.
Here.
Councilmember Lang. Here. Councilmember Rule.
Here.
Thank you. And would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thanks.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
With liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Just so you don't change your mind. Okay. Can I have an approval of the agenda?
I'll move to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any objections?
No.
Wonderful. Okay. So we'll have our public communications first. These are any items that are not on the agenda, of which I have one card so far, and that is Peggy Grenier. Peggy, are you there? Hello. Now this is just the regular public comment, correct? Not on one of these items?
Yes.
I'm asking her. Okay, thanks.
Good evening.
Hello.
I'm so glad to be here. I didn't think I could speak tonight because it's a special meeting, and I'm very short. I'm from the International City of Peace, and our mayor and all of you sent over a proclamation to the Peace Project, the Peace event on Peace Day, September the 21st. It was great. We're sorry you couldn't come, but it was wonderful, and we just were so thrilled to have it. And Steve Quillisi showed up looking like a fabulous in his suit. He just looked great. I was so impressed by him. And he was great when he read the proclamation and talked a little bit about it. So is there somebody else on my team? Okay, she's not seeing me. Okay, I was going to bring some of the team for the next meeting, but I'm here. So thank you very much, and we look forward to continuing a wonderful relationship. Oh, it was our 10-year anniversary. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And the proclamation was great, everything that it said. So many thanks from us and also Interfaith, who everyone on Interfaith committee became members of the International City of Peace team. So that's why we put together a great event. So many, many thanks, and thanks to you, my dear, for helping push that through. Okay, thank you.
And just to say, there is going to be a ceremony here with the flag raising, I want to say 2 weeks from now on a Wednesday morning. Does that ring a bell?
No.
I think it was Ray Powers was working on that.
Oh, okay. Well,
So more to come.
more to come, and I'll talk to Ray. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. What item is this for, Bridget? Is this a public comment? Casey, let me just ask you a question. Is this about one of the items or about something that's not
about
on
the items on the agenda.
Okay.
It's a rather unfortunate thing. I think a lot of people already know it, but because news does spread rather like fire. But Ziania Balora's body was found. For anybody that didn't know, if anybody wants to get together and come up with things to do for the family, please contact me after the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Is there anybody online that would like to speak?
He's right
Oh,
now.
no problem.
I'm waiting. James is coming up.
The boss of the internet. There you go. Thank you, sir.
There are no hands raised.
Okay. All right, we will move on to our first discussion item, which is resolution appointing a voting delegate and alternate to the 2025 League of California Cities Annual Conference. Mr. Harvey.
Yes, Mayor, make this very short and sweet. There are two of you attending the League Conference in Long Beach this year. It is the Mayor Pro Tem and Council Member Whitman. In order to vote in the General Assembly at the end of the conference, you have to, by resolution, appoint at least a delegate. Since there are two of you going, it would be appropriate to not only appoint a delegate, but also an alternate. The General Assembly is at the end of the conference, so if either the Mayor Pro Tem or Councilmember Whitman will not be there on Friday, they should not be appointed to that role. It is the last item of business. And that's my short and sweet report. Thank you.
Can I ask a?
Yeah.
Members going, planning to stay to the end?
I am, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll be there on Friday, but I think it's appropriate for the mayor pro tem, as if the mayor was going, it'd be appropriate for the mayor.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
I think it's mayor pro tem, yeah, I'll be an alternate.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
Any
you.
objections to that?
I'm
No.
happy.
Great.
Happy to do it.
I think we got it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, so the next item, which is why we're primarily here, so the workshop on the permanent supportive housing project documents. So one point, since this is a workshop and we're working by consensus, I want to encourage my colleagues, if someone brings something up that they want to forward and you have a concern or an objection, are you okay?
I am.
No.
Wrong bite.
Just definitely let me know or let us know that you want to talk about this item, because we are working by consensus. So we're sort of nodding our heads, yes, we want this, and they're taking that down. So if you have an objection, raise it. Okay, when we go to those items. So don't let that slip by. And then for those of you who wanted to give public comments, we are suggesting that the way to go is public comments after the presentation and working through, so you have something to comment on, if that makes sense. So right now there's not much to comment on. So that's what we'll do going forward. So let me turn it over to you, Mr. Harvey.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm actually going to hand things over to Mr. Seibert.
Oh, great. Little handoffs.
And here we go. So good evening. My name is Lucas Seibert, Community Development Director for the City of Ojai, for all of you out in TV land and out here tonight.
Mm-hmm.
The item before you tonight is a workshop. I'm going to go through just quickly the purpose, kind of some objectives here as well, and then I'm going to turn it over to the Dignity Moves team to go through a fairly lengthy and necessary and informative PowerPoint presentation that's going to have some really good detail. So the purpose for tonight's meeting is to, through the selected drawings provided, actually it's a walkthrough of the Ojai Permanent Supportive Housing Project documents. You see those before you tonight, and there's a PowerPoint to walk through some of those kind of high level and some details to some of those as well. The reason for this and the purpose for this tonight is City Council, you as a body had asked for this at the September 9th meeting when we heard both the budget as well as the timeline moving forward for this project. The selected drawings provided for review and discussion have been identified through the Dignity Moves team, and they'll be diving into those into some detail. And then no formal decision is being made tonight. That was part of the staff report. Input will help to guide the final decision, which is what the mayor had alluded to in terms of some of those specific details that are going to be brought up tonight and discussed. In terms of the objectives, it's a review and discussion of the project documents and details provided by Dignity Moves. This is an opportunity for council and the community to really kind of gain a deeper understanding of the proposed plans. That's really dating back from the May meeting where council had made that determination. The presentation by Dignity Moves is being procured tonight by both Dylan Johnson as well as Kathy Nolan. And then we also have Jeff Spar here tonight, which will be introduced as well. And really what we're looking to is incorporate city council feedback input as well as community input as well. That will be helped to kind of frame the final construction documents moving forward. So with that, I would ask for the PowerPoint presentation to be put up, and then for Dylan and Jeff and Kathy as led to present tonight. We do have a clicker as well to help.
Thank you very much for the introduction.
Thank you.
I'm happy to be here and put this report in. Primarily what we'll be doing is going through the documents as they stand today. And so the heavy lifting will be by our architect and our landscape architect. But as Lucas said, we'll be here for any kind of questions. Look forward. With that, Dylan Johnson, our architect, will do their presentation.
Quick question. Would you like to go through something, have us listen and take it in, and then come back to you with questions, or stop you midstream? How would you prefer?
I think it would be most productive if I go through it and we can circle back to the beginning. I
Okay.
think there'll be numerous sort of technical
Thank you.
issues, but having a sense of the big picture.
Thanks.
So anyhow, great to see you again, council and staff and the community. I just think it's wonderful how much thought is going into this project, and I appreciate the opportunity to have a live working session with you here. So it's important for everyone to be on the same page about where we are in the process. So in July, we issued the design development set, and just to recap, building projects, architectural projects typically go through 3 phases. There's schematic design, which is what we worked through with the Planning Commission going back into late last year. And that establishes the overall concept for the building. And then from there, we advance to design development when we start to flesh out some of the details and a real clear understanding of what this building's going to look like, but it's not construction ready. That we completed in July, and we sent out with the RFP Part 1 for pricing. And the last meeting we had was the pricing feedback we got from the design development set. All of that information that we gathered then has since informed what we've been doing for the last several weeks, which is preparing the construction documents that will both go in for permit, for approval. I met with Ventura County Fire this morning to go through some of these plans with them, and soon we'll be meeting with Building and Safety, and eventually use the construction document set to go out for bid and ultimately construction. That document set is targeted to be completed on November 7th. So we have about 5 to 6 weeks to take the drawings that you see tonight, incorporate this feedback, and produce what will be the final set of drawings in November. So that is the current project schedule that we touched on last time we met. So it's a great time to incorporate feedback that comes up. So starting here, this is our bird's eye view that we've been looking at all along. You can see the courtyard building there in the center. It is, I've always really appreciated this image insofar as how it demonstrates how this building sits in the landscape, largely nestled in an existing grove of oak trees on the west, the south, and the east sides, making use of what is currently sort of the open space in the public works yard. And let's see, there we go. So again, just to sort of, set the groundwork for the project, I think it's helpful to revisit the goals and the project objectives that Dignity Moves and thereby the rest of the design team was provided with at the outset. And it was really sort of 3 high-level goals that came, frankly, directly out of City Council's stated goals, which are 1, to deliver supportive housing for the residents of the tent town. And that would be in the form of 30 single-room occupant units, along with gathering space, a laundry room, and 3 offices for support and admin services. Objective number 2 is to employ fire-resistant construction and help increase the fire resilience of the community. And number 3, finally, is to promote climate resiliency through sustainable low-carbon design and construction. So we'll sort of touch on those at the beginning, and it's really out of those 3 things that all of the design decisions have been evaluated and made. So we'll circle back to this plan later in the presentation. This is the landscape planting plan, but it's one of our more illustrative drawings showing the site plan. Just to remind everybody, you see Montgomery Street on the right, Ventura on the left, with vehicle access coming up off Montgomery. Pedestrian access, we have made the proposal that rather than send folks, particularly in wheelchairs, down to Montgomery and back up to town, we've introduced this switchbacking accessible ramp that accesses South Ventura Street, which you can see on the upper part of this drawing here. A parking area just to the north of the building. And then the building itself is a courtyard scheme, sort of a classic Spanish hacienda design that really uses sort of, traditional building typologies to both create a comfortable residential environment and also take advantage of the shade that the deep overhangs in the courtyard provide to increase energy efficiency. Zooming in, here is a furniture plan of the building itself. So you can see this is rotated now, so north is to the left. The entrance to the whole project comes in off the left through the gates. As one enters, you could turn right and enter the administrative suite, where we have the 3 offices, the mechanical room, and the laundry room. You could also come into the entry hall and turn to the left to the community gathering space. It's important to note here that this isn't a kitchen. This isn't a commercial kitchen. This is a dining and gathering space. So meals will be prepared and delivered. They'll be prepared off-site and delivered for use here. So we do have warewashing facilities, dishwashers, and sinks along the north wall, and food storage in what we're calling the pantry, which is on the east wall there. You can see a pair of refrigerators and freezers and some shelving and so forth. Those are all behind closed doors, so that would be staff access, and the residents would be served the meals out in the gathering space, which can then spill out into the courtyard for much of the year. I expect that most of the gathering will actually happen in this courtyard in the center, that is then surrounded by the 30 SRO units. Again, that's single room occupant units, so it's really, you can imagine almost a hotel room, a simple suite with an ensuite bathroom. And there's 2 double units in the back corners of the building. Important to note sort of circulation through this space. Again, almost all of it will occur through those front gates on the left, but we do have egress routes out the back corners of the courtyard. Very importantly, in the case of an emergency or a fire in the courtyard, there are 3 ways to get out of this space. And then the courtyard itself, I'll let Kathy Nolan, our landscape architect, expand on this later, but it's really quite a pleasant, beautiful space. Outdoor picnic tables, big olive tree in the center, raised planter beds for gardening, and then a small lawn on the south side of the courtyard to the right there. As you've seen many times now, the building is very simple, understated, single-story construction with this sort of Spanish architectural material palette. I have samples of materials here we can go through later if you'd like, but we'll get into some of the details of how this building actually comes together. So those first few slides were really addressing objective number 1, which is to provide these the sort of basic program of the residential units and the support spaces. These next few slides will get into the second 2 objectives, the first one being wildfire resistance. And so this project is in what CAL FIRE has designated as the very high fire severity zone, I think we all know. So therefore, the building must comply with the most stringent wildland urban interface codes. Folks refer to that as the WUI codes. I'm sure you've heard it. And some of the key features of WUI compliant buildings include a Class A roof assembly, so sort of the highest level fire resistance at the roof. That's where a lot of wildfire risk occurs. Screened gutters to prevent leaf litter and so forth from filling the gutters and being prone to burning. And then intumescent screened vents at the soffits to ventilate the roof structure. Intumescent vents, intumescent products more generally, it is a material that when it comes into contact with an ember or burning, anything burning, it actually foams up. So you see this in steel buildings a lot, intumescent paints and coatings that it foams and it seals and it protects the underlying material. So all of the vents around this building have this intumescent matrix around them. So it's really an important part of fire resistance in the new reality that we live in. Most of the homes that were lost in the Thomas Fire, for example, were lost because embers were sucked into the roof structure, caught the attic on fire, and they collapsed it. So this is a great innovation that we can take advantage of. All the windows are dual pane and tempered, which is pretty standard in this environment now. And then the cladding of the building is ignition-resistant stucco. So essentially, the code says we need ignition-resistant materials, which basically means things that if you hold a lighter to it, it's not going to catch on fire. And then finally, Kathy's been doing quite a bit of work to ensure that we comply with the defensible space requirements. Ventura County Fire, as far as I understand, actually has more stringent requirements for a defensible space than even CAL FIRE. So we'll be in quite good shape when it comes to landscape as well. And then lastly, on the left there, we do have some exposed timbers, really just the columns around the arcade. Those will all be larger than a 4x material, or 3.5 inches, which is, again, it's ignition resistant. They're larger pieces of wood that typically char and don't ignite as kindling well. You'll see this image a lot as just a diagram to help visualize how this building is put together. Keep in mind, this is just a diagram. This isn't to scale, so if you want more accurate drawings of the building itself, we can look at the actual construction plans in the latter part of the presentation. So the third goal, climate resiliency, a lot of focus has been around a low carbon building system and a high degree of environmental sustainability when it comes to the construction itself. And I thought it would be helpful just to do a very brief sort of high level snapshot of what the climate impacts really are in the built environment. They're tremendous. Buildings account for about 40% of the world's greenhouse gas emissions, so there's a lot of opportunity to do this better. And for an individual building, it's really bucketed in these two large categories. The first being embodied carbon on the left, and that is all the emissions that come from the manufacturing, the transportation, and the construction itself. So things, all of the carbon that went into the products that eventually become the building before it even gets to the site. And then the second piece is operational carbon. So that's all the energy that's required to heat and cool and light and maintain the building over time. And what's really quite interesting is for many years, the focus was on the operational carbon side of the total carbon the life cycle. But in recent decades, as a society, we've made tremendous improvements in building efficiency through technology, LED lighting and heat pumps, electrification, et cetera, more insulated buildings and tighter building envelopes. That's all led to huge improvements in how efficient buildings are. And so now the lion's share of the carbon impact of a building is actually in the embodied side of the equation, which you can see over on the left here. This is a study published by the Rocky Mountain Institute for wood frame residential construction in North America. And upwards of 70 to 90% of the total carbon impact of a building is actually happening out of the materials that you're building before you even finish construction. So there's a lot of room for improvement there. And we'll get into some of the strategies we're using for this building in a minute. But quickly, on the operational side, again, these are fairly easy things to do that provide high levels of efficiency and low carbon, long-term low carbon impacts of the building. The first thing is it's 100% electric. We're not even installing a gas line to the building, nor a gas meter. We're using high efficiency heat pumps for the heating and air conditioning. These are ductless mini split systems that are installed in each unit. High efficiency heat pump hot water, that's a relatively new system for this part of the world, but it's working quite great and much more efficient than electric resistance or gas hot water. There's PV solar, so solar panels on the south-facing roofs. Important to note that that's actually outside the scope of Dignity Moves contract. What the project and the general contractor under Dignity Moves scope will be providing is a solar-ready building, so all the conduits and panels and so forth will be installed, and then the solar panels themselves will come in outside of the scope of the general contractor construction, and therefore the budget. I think we should be careful not to digress into a discussion of budget tonight. Let's talk really about the building, but that is a fairly significant line item that's important to note. And I'll just say the last bullet here, EV charging is the same. We're providing the rough-in for the EV charging infrastructure, but not the chargers themselves. Other energy efficiency elements we're using is the LED lighting, occupancy sensors, and then these last two bullets really just go back to sort of traditional Adobe, Southwest, and Spanish architecture, just working with first principles in physics around deep overhangs, thick walls, thermal mass, to just minimize the energy you need in the first place to keep these buildings comfortable. So working with those traditional typologies just makes the rest of this pretty easy. So now talking about the embodied carbon piece of it, if you recall, when we started the project last year, we studied a traditional straw bale construction. So you can see a straw bale there in the upper right. Straw is the leftover stalks of the grain harvest every year. This is a global issue wherever grain crops are grown. Here in California, one of the big ones is rice in the Sacramento Valley. And the farmers need to dispose of the straw every year to make room for crops the next year. That straw grows throughout the growing season. As it's growing the grain, it's pulling carbon out of the atmosphere and it's fixing it into the physical material of the grain crop. And then when they harvest the grain, these stalks are left. They're a couple of feet high, and they represent quite literally the carbon dioxide that was pulled out of the atmosphere while it grew. Now, through most of the world, that straw is disposed of in one way or another. Typically, it's burned, which has a host of issues beyond just the carbon, but the air pollution as well. Here in California, that's banned, so they actually flood all the rice fields, which releases tremendous amounts of methane every winter, not to mention it uses lots of extra water. That's a rabbit hole we don't need to go down tonight, but my point is that straw represents this tremendous opportunity to reduce the environmental impact and the carbon impact of the building, both by taking that straw off the fields, turning it into building materials, sticking it in a building, and it locks it up for the life of the building, typically many decades. And these happen to be very important decades when it comes to the climate crisis as well. So the more of that atmospheric carbon we stick in our buildings, the better in that regard. So we were first looking at straw bale. Given the constraints of this site, and as you can see, straw bales are typically pretty wide, about 2 feet wide. That results in a very thick wall section, which resulted in smaller units. And I think in some of the discussions we had largely with the Planning Commission, there was really a desire to make these, what are already fairly small units, as big as they could possibly be and still fit on the site within the footprint. So we did quite a bit of research and have come up with a proposal to use compressed straw panels. Unfortunately, they're only manufactured one place in the world, in Australia right now. It's a very promising product that's been in production in Australia for about 50 years. The brand name is DuraPanel. You can see it down there on the right. And they essentially take this straw and without a glue or a resin, they compress it under heat and pressure and turn it into a 50 millimeter construction board. It's quite a remarkable product. The pressure releases the lignin that's actually in the straw naturally that acts as a binder, so you're not adding additional petrochemical resins and so forth to it. So when at the end of the building's life cycle, these panels can just be composted. And they also offer some pretty remarkable performance characteristics. They're semi-structural. They provide excellent acoustic resistance. There's some thermal value, not a lot, but there's some thermal insulation value. And they're extremely fire resistant. So for all of these reasons, they seem like a great product for this particular project. And they're much thinner, so we can actually achieve a fairly thin wall section and maximize the square footage in units. So here's some examples of DuraPanel used in Australia. You can see we are proposing to use them for the interior face of the exterior building walls, the partition walls between the units. That's largely through their fire resistance and acoustic properties. They'll provide excellent partitions between the units. And then in the gathering space, our one vaulted ceiling space, we're using them as ceiling panels, much like the image on the upper left. We don't have the horizontal collar ties that are shown here, but they'll provide the finished ceiling surface. And again, some technical details about how the panels actually come together, if anybody's interested. And I think it's worth noting that in Australia, at least, these panels, this isn't a novel material. They're used for a range of product scales, small residential, civic, industrial, and institutional projects as well. I think all of the international airports in Australia have this panel as the roof structure. So it's sort of a time-tested and proven product, new to this area, but certainly not there. Another major part of a building is its insulation, just in terms of the physical mass of what goes into a building. And again, with the goal of using plant-based materials, bio-based materials that are pulling carbon out of the atmosphere during the growing season and putting them into the building. There's some great products on the market now made from hemp, particularly in insulation. So we've specified 2 different kinds of hemp insulation. Hemp wool for the walls, both for thermal and acoustic insulation around the exterior perimeter and inside the partition walls between the units and the offices and so forth. And then in the attic structure, a loose fill fiber that's called fiber fill. It's basically a chopped hemp product. These all have fire retardant treatments as well, so they're it's not just hemp. It's a treated product that provides excellent thermal and acoustic and fire resistant properties. And then lastly, really coming out of we had originally specified a clay tile roof, which you'd see all over town. Frankly, the pricing for that came in quite high. Clay tile is it's a heavy product and it's an expensive product to install and to seismically restrain. In the case of an earthquake, it's a huge hazard to have clay tiles falling off the buildings. So you have to do a fairly complicated anchorage system. So again, going back to the drawing board and researching products, we've come up with a product. This is an open specification, so we're naming a brand that we think fits the bill, but it is an open spec, so if other manufacturers can provide an equivalent product, they will. The product we're looking at here is by Brava. They make a Spanish barrel tile, actually out of recycled post-industrial plastics that meets all of our performance criteria. So it's Class A fire rated. It's much more lightweight than the clay tile, so it reduces the structural demands as well as the emissions related to transportation. And it comes with a 50-year warranty, so it should be a very simple, cost-effective, low-maintenance solution for the city to own this building long-term, and uses recycled plastic. And frankly, it looks quite good. I was quite pleased with this product. So the rest of this presentation, I might do a quick pause here because the rest of this is much more technical. These are the drawings themselves. Again, they're in progress. Myself and the rest of the consultant team are actively comparing and coordinating the sheet, so I'm sure you'll find inconsistencies and mistakes here. We would expect that and have it all pulled together and tightened up by November 7th. So I'll pause quickly there if there's any questions so far, or we can jump into the sheets.
Colleagues?
Thank you for this. This is great. So when we were talking about embodied carbon, and I love the idea now that I'm really understanding better the compressed straw panels. I built a straw bale house. I also baled the straw.
Amazing.
So, yeah, it was pretty amazing.
In Ojai?
Yeah.
Oh.
No, I'm sorry, in Western Massachusetts.
Okay.
So I do know that you can bale at different, you can set your baling specifications however you want. Also building the house, we used a chainsaw to go through the bales.
We do.
Right? Yeah. So,
I've built them as well.
Yeah. But I really appreciate the compressed straw panels. I was not aware of them. I was not aware that they were as sort of organic and adulterated as they are. So I thank you for that. I thank you for doing the research on that.
Have a sample as well if you'd like.
Yeah, I'd love to see it. It sounds great. There is an operational cost to come from
Australia,
but kind of, nothing is without its thing. So this is interesting. Anyway, I wanted to thank you for that.
Pass that down, please.
Yes. Okay. I'm going. And then, I also don't want to go down the rabbit hole of the budget, and so we can talk about the things.
I think it's inevitable we'll touch on it.
Yeah.
Because all of these decisions do have cost impacts, and we're working with a fixed budget. So I would welcome some. I'd hate to derail the design.
Yeah. No. I don't think we need to talk about the budget here and the solar panels and the EV charging coming out of the budget because we'll have to put that back in. But I really appreciate learning about the compressed straw panels. And the acoustics are huge, right? I mean, the idea, and just if you've ever been in a straw bale house, there is this sense of quiet and peace that comes from not having, artificial basic, artificial materials there. It's a silence and a stillness that I think is very peaceful. So, and I think that for me, the compressed straw panels will work to provide that. So I really thank you for bringing this forward, and I think it is a building material that we can all kind of sort of eventually adopt. Yeah.
Well, I will say that this will be, there are some instances, as far as I can tell, of the product being used in North America, but this will certainly be the most recent and the most high profile. And I would encourage us to all talk about it as much as we can.
That's
because
interesting.
There's the company that manufactures it's actually working with an architect in LA to do quite a bit of rebuilding in the Palisades with this fire resistant material. So anyhow, I think we're part of a larger conversation about bringing these products to North America, and I'd love to see it.
That's great. More questions? Yes, go ahead.
So how does that product fit into the fire resistance category? 'Cause you might assume it's bad, but you could also assume it's good. How it's treated and constructed.
Yeah, it's a great question. So it is largely good. Unfortunately, the fire testing standards in Australia are different than what we use in North America. So I've actually engaged with the company DuraPanel, connected them with North American testing labs to give us the by-the-book 1-hour fire rating requirement that we'll need for the partition units. The acoustic rating of the partitions is, our desire is an SDC rating of 60, which is very high. So we're actually using a mix of drywall and the DuraPanel, so we'll get the necessary fire separation between the units actually technically from the drywall that'll be behind the DuraPanel. But they're actively working on the testing. I actually pushed the company hard last week to get me an answer before tonight so I could have a better answer for you. But they've done a tremendous amount of fire testing on it, and it's quite good, largely because it's so dense. There's no oxygen in the panel, so it chars, and the surface actually blackens, and that stops the burning of the material itself. And because it's so dense, it's an excellent radiant heat barrier. So there's a video on their website actually of a building they built and tested for bushfire resistance in Australia, where they essentially set the building in a wildfire environment and measured the temperature inside, and it was remarkable. It essentially is deemed to be a wildfire safe product for the Australian building codes, but of course those are different. So we're working to get the testing done so we can actually submit to Ventura County Fire and the building department ASTM standards.
Thank you.
And on a similar question, you mentioned the high fire hazard severity zone. And just to clarify, this project is in one of those zones.
Yeah, it's
as
actually
far as I can,
very high.
I looked
the
at the
worst.
map. Yeah,
Yeah.
It's the highest
Yep.
risk zone. And so our county supervisor gave us some feedback about his thought process when another location was proposed at the Honor Farm. And he said that the fire department let us know they had serious concerns about circulation and access in case of emergency. Have we had those discussions with the fire department, and what kind of a response have they given us?
Yeah, it's a very important and good question. So this is more about site access, so I'll go to the site plan. And timely. I actually met. I don't have the civil drawings here, which actually show all the dimension fire requirements. But I actually met with Ventura County Fire this morning, and we went through this in quite a bit of detail. So the big thing is that they have a place to turn around, that they have sufficient flow rates from the hydrants, and that we have, the whole project is sprinklered and alarmed. I just frankly told him, I said, look, let's err on the conservative side here. We actually could apply for sort of residential grade sprinkler and fire protection systems, but we're not going to. We're gonna comply with the commercial grade level. But they've very carefully looked at the turning radii of the drive, the turnaround that we're providing in the parking area, the hydrant location, the flow rates, and the sprinkler systems, and he's quite happy with it. In fact, he said a lot of what you're suggesting we do here is over and beyond what code requires and what we are requiring as the fire department, and we need you to disclose that that is the owner's voluntary election to add these pieces to the project. And so you'll likely see some of those notes on the final construction drawings that, for example, we're including wall-mounted fire extinguishers in every unit, more fire extinguisher cabinets than are required throughout the public spaces of the project. There's an excess of egress than would be code required, et cetera. So I think we're taking with respect to the budget, keeping that in mind, we're not going completely overboard, but we're erring on the conservative side when it comes to fire.
That's great to hear.
And then I've got another question, but I think it's for staff, and so I'll defer that.
Okay.
And let people ask questions of the architect.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Thank you so much for all the research that you did, trying to find products that would meet our ideals of working to reduce carbon emissions and also to use as natural products as we could. I'm excited about all of this, and especially the Duro panels. So my question, I want to go back to the layout, and I just had just one question about the kitchen. So I noted what you said about how there was no cooking or food preparation. So are there any cook plates, or is this because of a health department regulation, or what was the reasoning behind that?
Yeah, it's a great question, and we could call up some other folks from Dignity Moves here because they're much more knowledgeable about how these projects operate than I am. But at the highest level, one, there's a desire to have a communal dining experience here as opposed to individual kitchenettes within the units where folks are more prone to stay in the units, cook there, and not come out and socialize with the rest of the community. So part of it is, and that of course brings a host of issues with budget, of course. Providing 30 kitchens would be very expensive. Space requirements, these units are small. And again, just the notion of this sort of courtyard communal living environment where you're gathering at least a couple of times a day outside of the individual units. So the infrastructure, yes, if meals were to be prepared in a building of this scale with this size and this number of residents, it would immediately trigger commercial kitchen requirements with hoods and grease traps and frankly 7-figure impacts to the budget and the space requirements. It would be a very different floor plan. So I think there is a practical budget driver here that actually works well with how a lot of these projects operate with food prepared offsite and delivered. I'm going to pause there for a minute and ask Jeff Gaddis if you have any further comments on that, because it's a very important topic.
Nice to see everybody. So there's a communal aspect to this, right? Of drawing people into eating together, not isolating, bringing them into a common space. And then, of course, there was the cost prohibitive aspects of bringing a commercial kitchen, which would have blown the budget out. That was going to be a real challenge for us. We met with many mansions. I imagine a number of you do. We met with the CEO, the executive director, and other members of the team about the operations of this site, just to compare with them what they're doing. And they both saw, from an operational standpoint, the capacity there is funding and other ways that we can bring food in and deliver and have food delivered to the residents. There are programs that are already funded in place that we can access. So we've had extensive conversations with them about this site, and they're supporting what we're doing as well. But it's going to be a combination of people being able to bring food in themselves. There'll be toasters, microwaves. They'll have a microwave in their unit, maybe like a warming plate, things like that they can still cook a little bit minimally, but get their needs met. And then the delivery of food in there. And we think, and also, I really consider, because when we're trending, and I talked to Jane at Help of Ojai about this, But if you look at the trends and the numbers you have in your population here, the biggest trend you have is in elderly homeless, and the number of elderly that we've already identified that are in the site, which is a significant portion of the site. This is really amenable to a lot of your elderly population living in the space, having food delivery, having food brought on site. It's going to have, to me, when we're trending, and again, I talked to Jane about as you move into this site and really operate it, you will see a number of elderly benefiting from this site as a large part of your population. So this site fits that population, the configuration of what we were able to do, again, within the budget and creating a real communal environment.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
That helps to know that there are toasters and microwaves, because what I wouldn't want to have happen is for residents not to have any way to prepare food and then have to go spend money buying food at restaurants and things like that. So
I would say to that, as someone who's operated a number of sites over the years, is the food component of it is such a big deal, right? And also nutrition and health and working with them and bringing them into really helping them with food, because it's a struggle. And the cost of food as well. So we need to also consider the cost of food for people, even though they're coming in here on very low fixed incomes, to help to bring other supportive services in with food to offset the costs of living for them. And as we all know, food is going up and up and up. So there is that component of it as well. But you do have the opportunity to make food for yourself. It just wouldn't be like a full, extensive meal. But there's compensation for that.
great, thank
Thanks.
you.
Thank you. I wanted to mention the opening slide. When I see the drawing of what it's like on the property, this just really makes it become real when we see it in relation to the public works yard and then in the valley. So it's really extraordinary to see that way. And all the trees that are around there, those are trees that are currently there now? Or for
Yeah,
the most
this is
part?
admittedly a blend of architectural rendering, Google Earth, and the AI friends. So it's far from photo accurate, but I think it, particularly the trees to the right here, so on the west side of the building, those are all existing. Yeah. So
Yeah.
when creating this rendering, the only tree I quote unquote added to the rendering is the olive tree in the
In the
center of
middle.
courtyard. The rest of it is all, somewhere
Thank
between
you.
Google and Gemini.
Thanks.
Interpreting what's actually there.
Ms. Bang, do you have any questions? Okay. Yeah.
I do just have one thing to say, and it really has to do with the model and of Dignity Moves and the idea around communal spaces. And I just want to advocate for those who don't want to hang out with people. You know what I mean? I mean, at some point, you get to make the choice. And if you don't want to hang out with people, you get to not hang out with people.
That is
The whole idea of let's force them to be communal, I'm like, that would not work for me. I just want to say that.
Let me speak
Yeah.
to that, okay? So you don't have to hang out with people. I mean, this is a natural flow of a communal space, right? You don't have to interface, and anybody in the room hears this. You do not have to interface with people that you don't want to interface with. But from a perspective of isolation, which is a real concern of just isolating in your unit, not coming out and wellness checks and just making sure people are okay, it's a very natural way of doing it. Absolutely, you have a space to be. There's even spaces, and Dylan can speak to this, in the courtyard where you can sit quietly on your own. You can leave the property and come in on your own. So you have the ability to be in these spaces, to draw you out a little bit, just to check on you, just to commune with you, but you have the isolation you need to have your privacy.
Yeah, and I think, I can talk to Ms. Nolan as well about how she designed the space. And I'm sure she designed the space for some contemplative
That's right.
areas where you can just go be who you are by yourself.
100%.
Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to,
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
please,
and I think it's it's no surprise that this is modeled off of a cloistered monastery, which is obviously a very quiet and contemplative. So the units themselves, particularly, there'll be a curtain that can be pulled over the glazing that faces the courtyard and have a very private space. Oh, I'm sorry. Is that better?
Thanks. Yeah, please go on.
Okay. Any questions, or should we get into the more?
Sure.
Yeah,
Actually,
go ahead.
one more question. So the pet relief the mainly in the courtyard, or there would maybe perhaps that's coming later?
Yeah, the pet relief is across the parking lot. And I should have mentioned some of the outbuildings here actually when I was going to get into that on the site plan here in a minute, but we might as well touch on it now. So on the north side of the parking lot, there are two structures. On the far left there is the trash enclosure. An update from the design development drawings you saw earlier in the year is it now has a roof on it, which is consistent with Lucas's requirements. So city code requires a roof over the trash enclosure. So that exists. And then the other change from the design development drawings is we used to show a storage building that was a ground up construction, to match the main building with a tiled roof and so forth. Largely driven because of budget and also space on that side of the site. We've switched it to storage containers. I think we mentioned this in the last conversation about the budget. It'll either be one or two or maybe three. We're still determining exactly what the right layout is. But that exists to the right of the stair and ramp that goes up to South Ventura Street. And then to the right of there's a sort of light green square. That's the pet relief area that really occupies the northeastern quadrant. The hill starts to slope up pretty steeply there under those big oak trees, but there's kind of a loose triangular area there against the fence that separates Public Works Yard that will be pet relief. And a whole row of bike racks in front of the storage containers.
Thank you. Yes, go on, please.
Okay. All right, so let's, I'll jump ahead here again. Okay, so this is a subset of the total drawing package, which is currently around 100 sheets. I think we're presenting maybe 30 of the more important ones this evening. I actually have the full design development set here if anybody wants to look back and refer to more there. I don't think there's anything too meaningful to chat about here for the title slide. It really just introduces the projects and the basic code framework that we're working in. Again, the site plan, we've talked about this fairly extensively. This is the fire and life safety drawing, the occupant load calculations, egress routes from each of the units out through the front gates to the parking area where emergency vehicle access is. The turnarounds, for those that are familiar with the technical sides of things, this is largely an R2 occupancy. Again, single room occupants, residential for all of the unshaded units themselves. And then the blue area is an assembly occupancy. That's the gathering space. The green areas are a business occupancy for administrative offices and so forth. And then the sort of tan colored areas are storage. We can get into plumbing counts and occupant loads if anybody's interested. So this is the technical floor plan. This is the bid floor plan. So this is what Dignity Moves and the general contractors will be including in their bids. So this is sheet A2.2 with a lot of the call outs for each of the walls and the windows and the doors and so forth. I'm sorry, that was A2.1. A2.2, which I've enlarged here because I think it's the most useful drawing to see how the spaces lay out, is the furniture plan. And the way to look between these sheets is anything that's on this sheet is provided outside the scope of the general contract. So if you really want to understand what the contractor is bidding, it's on A2.1.
Just a quick question.
Yep.
Would you like us to stop you if we have a question about
No,
something
I think
particular?
now I think we have a big enough
Great.
Understanding. So feel free to interrupt.
Thank you.
We've looked at this furniture plan quite a bit. The little white boxes around the perimeter, those are the pads for the outdoor HVAC units. So we'll get to that in a minute. If anyone's wondering. Here's the roof plan. The dashed lines, the red dashed lines represent where those intumescent vents are. So they're really in the soffits, the overhangs, the eaves, and then again at the ridge to provide sufficient airflow through the roof structure. And part of the overall concept, I would say, with a light wood framed building and roof structure is sort of twofold. One, it's the most cost effective way to build residential housing in California right now. And also, wood is also a bio-based material that is also pulling carbon out of the atmosphere and getting stored in the buildings. So while it is more complicated with deforestation and other issues than, say, rice straw, it's also, from a climate perspective, a fairly good material to use. Okay, so now we're really getting into the building itself. So sheet A2.4 is some enlarged plans and elevations of a typical single unit floor plan. So on the bottom of the page there is the plan itself. All the dashed lines and annotation represent accessibility requirements. I shouldn't say requirements, but accessibility features. This building would typically, per code, require 2 or 3 units to be ADA accessible, and the rest of them wouldn't need to be. But given the population and some of the goals of the project, and the fact that we've laid this out as a single-story courtyard space, we thought it was advisable to make the building just a little bit bigger, to add the features necessary so all of the units are 100% accessible. So in the event someone in a wheelchair has to move in, you're not shuffling people around to different units. They're just all the same. The upper drawings are the interior elevations. You should note on the right in the key plan legend, you'll see the initials FOIO. So this refers back to the furniture plan and floor plan. FOIO stands for furnished by owner, installed by owner. So the furniture items, again, these are things the contractor won't include in their bid, but are anticipated for the project themselves. That's really the furniture. The beds, the desks, the refrigerator, and so forth, the mini fridge under the desk. But just a quick tour of the unit, because in many ways this is sort of the most important drawing in the whole set. You can see across the top there is a view of the unit with the door to the bathroom. The next drawing to the right is the side view of the bed. We're planning to have the ability to have some level of storage underneath the bed, but still have the bed low enough that it's accessible from a wheelchair. Higher on the wall is the mini split HVAC unit, so that's your heating and air conditioning. Those will be centrally controlled. This has been a topic of much discussion, whether the controls are in the unit or if they're controlled by the administrators in the offices. The latter is an important decision that we've made, that they will be centrally controlled to really prevent excessive heating, excessive cooling, and damaging of the units and so forth. Yes, Ms. Will.
Yeah, just a quick question.
Yeah.
So they'll be controlled from a central location. Will they be individually controlled? In other words, if I'm in unit 17 and I'm finding it hot or cold, can I go and say I'm in unit 17, I need a little bit more cooling, or is it across the board the same?
Yeah, excellent question. The technology exists for them to be individually controlled with one exception. They are on a 4-zone system. So there's one heat pump sitting outside that's providing heating or cooling to 4 units. So what we wouldn't be able to do is within those 4 units, have some in heating and some in cooling. But if they're all in heating or all in cooling, there would be the ability to have one at 68 and one at 72. I should say, again, this is getting into the more technical side of the HVAC system. We're also including a bid alternate for single zone mini splits where every single unit has its own outdoor unit. So they're 1-to-1, in which case every single one could be doing a different thing. We've had conflicting feedback from the contracting community about which one is going to be more cost effective. So we decided for the bid set, we're going to include it both ways and get prices for whichever one is most competitive. I will say from a design standpoint, that means 30 little units outside instead of 7 or 8. But again, because all those units are on the east, west, and south sides of the building behind this deeply, sort of wooded screen, frankly, as the architect, from an aesthetic standpoint, I'm not worried about it at all. But that is typically a concern, seeing all these units on the ground outside.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just have a question, if I'm looking at this correctly. Originally, we had talked about having like a window or something next to the front door, and then did we talk last time for cost effectiveness that wasn't going to happen?
Nope.
That is back in there. Is that what I'm looking at?
Yeah, we didn't get rid of that window.
Okay.
We just, rather than specify and bid it as a window from a window company and a door from a door company that have to come together, we're buying a single integrated unit from a single manufacturer. But no, we'll certainly have a window adjacent to the front door as well. Yeah, it's really the primary source of daylight
Right.
and views
Okay.
out the court.
Thank you.
That's that center top image, correct?
Center top image
Mhm.
is the view in the unit looking at the exterior.
As-
And
yeah.
the angle, the triangle in the window represents an operable diagram. So the hinge is at the point of the arrow. So that will be a casement window that opens. Importantly, the right-hand edge of it in this drawing will go out. So it wouldn't, it'd be very difficult to reach in and open the door in the event that it's locked and they have it cracked open for the night or something.
Mhm.
So it's an operational window.
It is, yeah. So
Right.
fresh air from there. And then in the bathroom, you can see on the second row of interior elevations above the toilet is another casement window. We are likely going to shrink that window. Frankly, I just think it's too big.
Mhm.
Right now, all the windows in the building are the same dimensions, but just in the last couple of weeks, we're looking to reduce the bathroom window size. I think it'll be a better fit for the room.
Mhm.
It'll also save money, but it's also a casement window that will provide cross ventilation through the unit. And while it's not required in these SRO units, it's sort of strategically located above the toilet / step stool. In the event of an emergency, it's sized to be an emergency escape window. So somebody could be rescued or exit through that window as well.
Mhm.
But anyhow, the second row is the bathroom. You can see we have a roll-in shower. We're working through the details of keeping the water from overflowing those roll-in showers, which can be an issue. There's a small closet in the bathroom, and then a wall-mounted lav. Again, that's really for ADA. It's why you don't see a more residential vanity. And let's see, other items to highlight in the bathrooms. We're going to go ahead and install grab bars in all the bathrooms as well. The hatch that you see around the bathroom are fiber reinforced panels. So this layout is intended to be easily cleaned, prevent water and mold intrusion if showers are left on or if fans aren't working or for whatever reason. We want this to be a very durable space. There's also a floor drain in the center of the rear wall of the bathroom, so cleaning, mopping, and so forth will be pretty straightforward. The floors throughout the building are a colored and sealed concrete, again, for durability and cost, but that's important to note. And otherwise, again, this is one of the most important sheets in the drawing. So any other questions about the...
What about the interior of the shower? Is that like an insert, or it's going to be the cement with tile, or what is that?
No, it's they're manufactured units, so they're manufactured slide-in ADA roll-in showers. So they'll have molded soap, ledges and fold-down bench and all the features for an accessible shower.
The floors are going to be concrete.
Yep.
Are they going to be concrete through the entire unit?
Through the entire building, actually.
Through the entire building.
Yeah, and we'll use an integral color and a sealer, so it won't look like a sidewalk, but it will also be a pretty basic floor.
Okay.
Mhm.
I mean, concrete's very hard, but okay.
Well, I think a lot of the discussion with the Dignity Moves team and many mansions and others has been the ability to customize these rooms, and they're so small. A small rug will cover most of the floor inside.
Right.
So
Okay.
we expect that between rugs and bath mats, most of the
It'll be softened.
I think
Okay.
most folks someone will provide it for them, or they'll bring their own
Okay.
some sort of
Yeah.
floor cover.
That sounds reasonable. Thank you.
Yeah, please.
Okay. So this is similar sheet, just looking at the double unit. So in the back corners of the building are the two double units, and they're exactly twice the size of the single units. Not hard to reconfigure into single units down the road if it's deemed necessary. But it really just provides two twin XL beds side by side, which forms a king, and then two desk, open shelf, mini fridge, closet assemblies together. I'll also just pause here for a minute. And a lot of this furniture that we're talking about, again, we don't know what the sourcing will be, but I've been in conversation with the Dignity Moves team and essentially offering to design sort of a kit of furniture parts actually out of DuraPanel. A lot of the elements in this building are very simple and are conducive to sort of 2-inch thick slab material. So the open shelves, the bed frames, the desk, the big communal dining tables in the gathering space. It could be another just kind of really neat way to feature these materials in a way that people are physically touching and interacting with. So again, it's an idea in the works, but when we get to
That sounds really, really neat.
procuring the FF&E, that's an option I think we should explore.
Mm-hmm.
So how many are double units and how many are single?
There are 28 singles. I'll just shoot back to the floor plan real quick.
Mm-hmm.
28 singles and 2 doubles. So the only 2 doubles are on the right side of this drawing at the top and the bottom of the page in the
Mhm.
corners. They're also, those will be units with obviously more than one person. So we've actually positioned them to be sort of the most private units. But again, they're just twice the footprint
Mm-hmm.
of the other. So wouldn't be hard to remodel it down the road.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This drawing, I don't think we need to spend a lot of time on. There's 2 just all gender bathrooms in the plan. So there's one adjacent to the gathering space and one adjacent to the offices. These are very straightforward, sort of single stall accessible bathrooms. Here's our beautiful trash enclosure, fairly straightforward. We're actually working, I need to work more with Dignity Moves and the operator to determine exactly what size dumpsters they need here. So the footprint of this may change or shrink. I'm working with Ventura Fire. This sized trash enclosure actually needs to be sprinklered, which adds some cost. So I want to really understand and make sure we're not overbuilding what's actually going to be required.
Just one, you said what FOIO stands for. What does it literally stand for?
Furnished by owner, installed by owner.
Thank you.
Yeah, and if you're ever wondering about that, the second sheet of the drawing set,
Mm-hmm.
at least I'm not sure if I think I did include it in the printed set for you, is the abbreviations and legend.
Oh,
So
thanks.
You can always go to page 2 and all the
Thank you. I
abbreviations.
appreciate that.
But again, trash enclosure is pretty basic. I included this sheet, the finished schedule, really for reference. This just goes through each of the typical rooms and identifies what's on the floor, what's on the wall. Oh, there you go. Yeah. Councilmember Whitman, he found the abbreviations.
I did find them.
Yeah, there's a few. Yeah. So this just goes through floors, walls, ceilings, and identifies what the material is. I apologize. You'll have to flip back to the abbreviations to know what any of it means. But it's largely either DuraPanel, walls or ceilings, or drywall, sheetrock, painted sheetrock. As I said, concrete floors, and then the bathrooms are these fiber reinforced panels. That's really in lieu of, tile, non-absorbent, easily cleanable materials. But there's some pretty nice FRP panels out there now that we'll specify that are a step above what you might see actually in this building. So sheet A 3.0 is our assembly keynote legend. This is a very important sheet in terms of how the building is put together. The keynotes in the upper right verbally describe what the key assemblies are that make up the building. So the walls, the roofs, the floors, and the ceilings and soffits. From a drawing and documentation standpoint, we use this system because, for example, if we change out, DuraPanel to plywood or vice versa, we can change the notation here, and it essentially propagates through the whole set automatically. So you can read through kind of in detail what each of the walls and roof and floor assemblies, how they're made. The diagrams on the bottom are our interior wall partition types, and the really important one to look at here is on the left. That's the wall type 2, which separates all of the units. So it's both 1 hour fire rated and has a very high STC rating. It's not actually tested because, again, we're in North America here where this DuraPanel is a new product. But as an architect familiar with these assemblies, I think this would be about an STC rating of 62, which is just above what we need. I actually was hoping to bring a table that explains what STC ratings actually mean, and anything, essentially what it means, anything above 55 is excellent. You can't hear shouting on the other side of the wall. So higher end hotels would provide STC ratings of 60 or more. Low end is kind of in the low 50s. And then just a simple sort of paper thin wall is probably an STC rating of 30. To give you a sense, this wall would achieve a very high degree of acoustic separation.
Dylan, can you
Yeah.
walk through the hashing, the thin line, the squigglies, the thin line, the hashing?
Yeah, we
For
certainly
anybody
can.
that's kind of
Yeah, and this is a sheet that's really helpful to when we get deeper into the set and we're looking at the details and you're wondering what does this hatch look like, you can flip back here and see. So at the top is a diagram of earth, so just native soil. Below that is a capillary break, so that's typically gravel, thing that's free draining materials. Below that is a concrete hatch. Although, let me see if this is printed big enough. I can maybe see it here. Below that is the stucco plaster hatch. So that just looks like sort of a lot of dots. Below that is a frosted privacy glass. So all the windows around the perimeter, the bathroom windows, those are all frosted, so they don't have to worry about closing the blinds for privacy. Below that, the sort of squiggly line, that is insole 1, which is insulation 1, which is our wall insulation, which we've specified as the hemp wool. So that's a hemp insulation. Insole 2 is the crosshatch. And insole 3, I don't think we're going to need it anywhere on the project. So these are just different insulation types. And rigid insulation is the bottom hatch. And we actually are using, I'll show you in a minute when we get to the building sections, but because the gathering space, we'd like to have a vaulted space to really celebrate this community gathering space. The proportions of it feel much better with a vaulted ceiling. That introduces some complications with roof venting and moisture management in the roof. So we're using a SIPS panel roof system there, which stands for structural insulated panels. And that unfortunately is a petrochemical based insulation sandwich panel, essentially styrofoam with plywood on both sides. There really isn't a good bio-based alternative for unvented, moisture impermeable roof assemblies like that. But it's very important that we manage moisture well at these ceilings to reduce the risk of mold and rot in the roof assembly long term. So that's the one place that we really don't have a good bio-based solution there. And you'll see that in a minute in the sections. Let's see, and then the other diagrams below that are just different wood framing members. I won't go through all the line types on the left. It's pretty technical, and not all of them are used in the project.
Thank you.
Please.
We're rolling up our sleeves here.
Yeah.
Can you also go through the interior wall type legend on that? Just
the
below
bottom?
it, yes.
Yeah.
Kind of talk through the different layers there.
Yep. Yeah, that was at the beginning of this slide. So there's really two interior wall types. The one on the left is the important both fire rated and acoustic wall panel. So the compressed straw panels are on the outside, the thicker 50 millimeter, 2-inch thick panels, and then a sheet of 5/8 Type X gypsum board. So that's a fire rated sheetrock over wood framing with the hemp wool insulation, and that's mirrored across both sides. So we have a very robust fire and acoustic wall that is currently identified between each of the units and around the offices to provide acoustic privacy for the offices. And then the wall on the right is just our typical, drywall stud framed for walls that don't need to be acoustically separated for the pantry to the great room or to the gathering space. So.
Thank you.
Okay. Again, the elevations. We talked about these a little earlier. We're still working on the entry gate design, trying to find a good vendor for that's sort of a placeholder there. I'm frankly not very happy with where it stands today, but we'll have some sort of decorative ironwork that provides a beautiful entry experience and also security. It's tricky with these iron gate fences that also provide egress because you need a crash bar. But you need a gate that's tight enough you can't just reach through the gate and pull the crash bar. So it's a challenge I've had to work through at other similar projects in the area. We'll come up with something that'll be great. And again, you can see the very simple, understated design. Hipped roofs, most of it truss with some gable roof structure or vaulted ceilings over the great room. So these are sections cutting through the courtyard, looking both ways, so you can see in the background the units, the side lights and the glass doors into each unit. The second drawing is looking back north through the courtyard out the entry. And you can see the bottom, the second from the bottom drawing. So the entry is on the right there. So you can see you come in sort of through this lower compressed space where we have some exposed framing with the plastered soffit above that'll provide this sort of spatial compression that then I think will, really just enhance the sense of openness and privacy once you arrive at the courtyard itself. So here's a few of the key sections through the building. The bottom two are our typical sections through the three wings of the building that contain the residential units and also over the administrative suite there. So again, these are very simple light framed wood trusses for the roof. And then the section above is a section through the gathering space where, again, you can see the proportion of that room is just much sort of more conducive to, 30 to 40 people gathering, Christmas parties, movie nights, etc.
Wait, Dylan.
Yep.
Go back to the previous slide. Sorry. What's the ceiling height that we're looking at here?
So the plate line, so the top of the typical walls around the perimeter of the building is just over 8 feet. So again, a pretty standard residential scale. Again, trying to be reasonable with cost here. Every foot you go up with the building is pretty substantial cost increases, both in structure and in building envelope and so forth. And given how small the units are themselves, an 8-foot ceiling feels quite appropriate. However, an 8-foot ceiling over the full span of that gathering space felt, you can almost imagine it would be this room, just another maybe 15 feet wider. It feels very flat, pancaked, not very welcoming and celebratory for the function that it's designed for. So that's why we've gone to some effort here to design a different roof system for over the gathering space. So the peak of the gathering space, let's see, 14 feet at the ridge beam. 15 to the top of the roof, and the roof's about a foot thick, so probably 14 at the peak. So some more technical wall sections here, really looking at how the exterior walls and soffits are put together. Here you can see the intumescent vents in the soffit, so the ceiling structure that's outside. You can see that little gap with a thick vent. That's that intumescent matrix that'll prevent the embers from entering the roof cavity. And you can see on the right there is our typical exterior wall section, stucco on the outside, 2x6 framing with plywood shear wall panels and the compressed straw panels on the inside. Given that most of the perimeter of the building is actually the bathrooms, that compressed straw panel will then be covered with the fiber reinforced panels to provide waterproofing and cleanability. On the left, I suppose it's worth noting, this is the proportions of the arcade. So that's the door into an individual unit. You can see you can step out. It's a 6-foot overhang, so very comfortable width. I imagine folks will have chairs out there, little benches, maybe potted plants, and still be able to pass by to access the more wall sections. These are cutting through the windows. In the last meeting, there was some discussion about how recessed the windows are. You can see on the right, this is our typical wall section at the bathrooms. Again, for economy and waterproofing, and also to give a nice deep sill on the inside. We're mounting the windows with their manufactured nail flange, which actually positions them on the outside face of the wall. It provides a fairly flush finish, which is not consistent with the Spanish character of the building, but because those three sides of the buildings are essentially never seen, we chose that wall assembly for those three walls. However, on the front of the building, so the north side from the parking lot, really trying to be more consistent with the character of the Spanish hacienda. Those windows are mounted in a sort of more complicated and expensive way, sort of deeper in, so you get the shadow lines and so forth on the front of the building.
I have a question.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about this last time, but the last couple of slides have at least partially addressed the drainage at the footing. of the north and west walls, and I understand we're treating them differently on the south and
Yeah.
east walls. We have waterproofing called out for on the north and west, but not on the east.
Dave, you have a
South.
very good memory. Yeah.
And, you know, as somebody who's lived here for a long time, we really have drainage problems in this town. So how much are we saving by cutting out that same drainage treatment for the south side of the buildings?
Yeah, let me just go to Kathy's plan here, because it shows the topo, which is really important. So the design development set had I'm actually originally from the Pacific Northwest, where they would laugh at the thought that there were water problems in Ojai. It's a huge deal there.
It's the amount of clay we have.
Oh my God. Yeah, no, exactly. No, I know it's a real issue here. But so the original design development set, I intentionally drew very conservatively. So we had full perimeter footing drains around the whole building and a sub-slab drainage system that took any hydrostatic pressure that came under the slab and relieved that into the foundation drainage system on the outside of the footing and got it all into the storm system out away from the building, which is what you do in places like Seattle, where hydrostatic pressure and water coming up through the slab is a real thing in all these hillside basements. So that was the original design. I wanted to see where the pricing would come in, because it's a relatively inexpensive thing to do when you're building a foundation, and it's an extremely expensive thing to do after the building's built. So as we got the budgets back and we needed to find savings, it wasn't insignificant. It was, I want to say, in the order of $40,000 to $50,000 to value engineer a more precise foundation drainage system for this site. And as we heard the contractor's feedback, took another look at it, looked at the soils report, without groundwater present. Granted, that can change obviously with a couple of storms. The real, just sort of looking at it from first principles, the water migration from the site and below grade is going to be coming obviously from uphill. So that's why we elected to put the foundation drains on the north and the west sides. And because there is structured drainage through the courtyard, so any water that comes off the roof or falls into the courtyard is actually getting collected in structured drainage and being carried away under the building. There's really very little risk of water coming from the south or the east, sort of making its way back uphill. So it's a risk that I felt like the contractor's suggestion was reasonable. That's what we have in the drawings today. But as the de facto owners of this building, it is relatively cheap insurance to add foundation drainage.
So my experience is not so much, you get rain coming down out of the sky. We don't have anything like Seattle. But my experience, over 35 years of owning a property is that when you get a few days of rain, the water just starts coming up out of the ground. You have this hydrostatic pressure thing, and you have, my driveway has rivers that are literally springs that kind of pop up when we've had a few days of rain. So that's why I'm expressing.
I appreciate the concern. I share it, and I think we will absolutely take note, work with the civil engineers to make sure that we're, I think again, kind of finding the right line of being conservative. But
yeah, I know it's specific to properties, and I don't really know this property, although it looks a lot like my property.
Yeah.
But I'm hearing you say, though, this would be something that we should set aside and wonder what would the cost be to bring it back and consider that pretty seriously.
Right.
I think that's worth asking.
And I actually should have opened the meeting saying, I think a big takeaway from tonight that'll be helpful is things like this, where there is concern or a desire for a certain feature or a certain material. We can add what are called bid alternates, and we can put those in the drawings, have the contractors bid them as alternates. They're sort of a menu of a la carte items that we can elect to take to the extent there's funding available. A range from more DuraPanel in the building to foundation drainage, et cetera.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I like that idea. I would like to investigate ways to include more Durapanels and less gypsum, or if that's possible. So that would be just something to consider. I do think you probably have made a judicious decision on how much, but just to get a sense of what percentage is the Durapanels and what percentage is sheetrock, or versus the hemp as well.
Yeah.
Just a percentage would be really helpful for me, and then to evaluate whether or not that can change, and does it change the cost substantially in that way. And I don't know, maybe you've pushed the limit on what the Durapanels can actually do. I'm not sure. So.
In that case, though, isn't the gypsum part of the fire hardening piece of that? That's what I thought I heard you say.
Well,
but
I'm happy to go into this.
Yeah,
use
we
the
can
flashing screen if you want,
talk
but-
about it, but the Durapanels also are I don't know about the code. I understand that they don't have a fire rating, so.
Well, I will say, so I've met with the building official for the city of Ojai, and sort of shared this story. He's very excited to approve the first Durapanel project in this part of the world. He thinks it's a great product, really, for all the reasons that I think we're all wanting to use it. And the fire testing, if you read the literature that is published out of Australia, it is fire resistant 1 hour rated assemblies. But because it hasn't been tested in an ASTM lab, which is how all the North American codes are written, we can't just give them the piece of paper that says we can use this. So he actually offered that there are code compliance alternative methods that we could take if we need to. I actually don't want to offer that to Durapanel. I want them to do the testing and provide the literature that we want. I just don't think it's responsible as a city to sort of extend ourselves that far beyond the tested, officially tested materials. So right now, to be very specific, where we're using it is on the interior face of the exterior walls. And I should back up a little bit. It really replaces two conventional building materials, plywood and sheetrock. So, it's obviously a paneling material. And the plywood in a conventional building really exists around the exterior side of the exterior walls. And it provides shear strength, so lateral stability for seismic and wind, and then also as roof sheathing on the roof. So we could use Durapanel. In fact, they use it in Australia as the exterior sheathing because it's actually quite strong. And one of the tests that we're having Durapanel run is what's called shear wall equivalence. So if they can produce that test before we build this building, we could actually use Durapanel instead of all the plywood around the outside of the building. Which would be great. Fire is actually not an issue there because we have this inch of stucco on the outside. That's providing the ignition resistance. The fire rating that I referred to earlier, the 1 hour fire rating, that is a requirement between the residential units. So if there's a fire in one unit, it's contained in one unit, doesn't spread through the building. So we need to have a 1 hour fire rated enclosure for each unit. So that's the walls and the ceilings. Right now, because we don't have the ASTM testing to ensure that the Durapanel will provide that, and the fact that we want an STC rating north of 60, those partition walls are using both gypsum and Durapanel. So if it was just gypsum, we'd use a multi-layer gypsum product. So we're basically swapping out some of the gypsum that we otherwise would have used for the Durapanel. And currently, for the ceiling structure, that's another place that's very well suited for Durapanel. You can see in Australia, that's typically where they use it because they actually provide it in these huge modular steel frames that the Durapanel sits into for the airports and convention centers. The feedback from the contractors was that this feels complicated, a lot of labor. We're going to spend a lot of money. This is kind of one of the trickier places to use it. So we've reduced the scope there to only over the gathering space where it's really sort of celebrated as a gathering space. And we're using sheetrock drywall ceilings everywhere else. That cost surcharge, I want to say, was $150,000 or something to add to do it for all the ceilings instead of just the gathering space. And then finally, the roof assembly as well. We could use it in lieu of the plywood roof sheathing. But again, I'm not comfortable specifying that until I get the structural testing back, which we may or may not get by the time we go to permanent build.
Great, thank you. I understand that. Thank
It's
you.
nice to hear that you've thought through all these things. That's
Oh, it's
really
killing
wonderful.
me. I mean, I wish we could just use it. And I think,
Yeah.
you know, hopefully in a decade from now, this will be more common and you'll build entire buildings out of it.
And I appreciate that your distinction between what a municipality can do and what a residential build
Yeah.
can do, and the responsibilities that a municipality has that you know a residential an owner can take responsibility for that. So I definitely understand and appreciate that.
Yeah, me too.
Great.
Wonderful.
Okay. Back into the weeds. Where were we here? Looking at the sections, the wall sections, the window positions, foundation drainage. Okay, so the next couple of sheets are interior elevations, which are simply, you know, snapshots of every interior wall in the space. I don't know that we need to go through these in great detail, but if there's anything in particular you're wondering about, you can see where we have countertops and cabinetry, open shelving. The windows, across the top is the laundry room. Again, you'll see that FOIO there in a few places. The appliances in the laundry are FOIO, but all of the rough-in, so the venting and the power and the water and so forth,
And
are
how
provided
many,
by the contractor.
How many in the laundry room? I'm sorry. In the laundry room, how many? I don't know what you call it. You know,
Yeah,
like for
washers
water
and dryers.
hookups or whatever.
Yeah.
For how many units?
Three commercial washers, 3 commercial dryers, at least roughed in for that. There'll be 3 slots, whether they're commercial grade or residential, I think is to be determined. But there'll be a total of 6 appliances, 3. And there, also in the laundry room in the center there, you can see there's a pretty large counter for folding and also a utility laundry sink there, and some open shelving that sort of wraps the space. We've also been fairly generous with, I think I mentioned this earlier, with the fire extinguishers. So there's one in there. There's one in the admin suite, one in the great room, and in the mechanical room. On the bottom, it's worth noting, so we have the mini split units that we talked about in each of the residential units. And then for the great room and the common areas, we're using a single ducted heat pump system. So it's the same technology, but it's providing air through a larger common area with ducts. That's going to be an exposed round spiral duct across the ceiling of the great room. So in the bottom left drawing, there's a little circle there. So that will be exposed. Again, it's trying to be mindful of budget, but also, you know, a comfortable environment. And but you'll see some of the infrastructure. You'll see this duct, which I think, when installed well, isn't too offensive. Okay, so this is the reflected ceiling plan, A6.1. This shows all the lighting, some acoustic absorptant panels in the common areas, ceiling fans, pendant lights, how all the switching works, etc. Fairly technical. Here's the reflected ceiling plan of each unit, and we are proposing a single acoustic absorptive panel on the ceilings. This is actually what's specified is a company called FSorb, which uses recycled plastic fiber into essentially like a thick polyester foam panel. So it's not a virgin petrochemical foam product, and you can wrap it in fabric. I've used it on a number of projects. You can touch it. It's not, you know, it's totally non-toxic and also fire resistant. But it provides it some nice deadening to the sound, so it's not too echoey in the space. You can see this, you know, the lighting and switching plans are really straightforward here. Sort of a single light switch as you come in. We'll likely see table lamps on the nightstands next to the beds, and then there's, you know, exhaust fans in the bathrooms per code, as well as some pretty basic lighting. Okay, so even more technical, this is the mechanical plans. Again, I think this is really, if anyone wants to see how these systems work from a technical perspective, I included them. But again, mini splits through the residential, multi-zone, a ducted split system through the common areas of the gathering space. This really kind of details where that duct goes. You can see its supplies kind of over the north wall, and then the return grills are on the bottom right there above the door. Here's all the supply and return infrastructure for the common areas, or the admin suite and the laundry room. We haven't talked much about the mechanical room, but we have a fairly generous space for all the heat pump, hot water, sprinkler risers, electrical panels, all the back end stuff. Enlarged mechanical plans of the units themselves. You can see they're fairly simple: exhaust fan in the bathroom and the mini splits on the walls. And then the plumbing plan. I think it is largely what you would expect. There is perhaps an abundance of drainage, really through the introduction of floor drains in all of the bathrooms. We've positioned the primary drain line actually outside the footing line, so it's easy to maintain and clean with little sort of mini laterals going into each of the units. So that was a suggestion from the plumbing engineers, just for projects like this where there's inevitably backups and so forth. Being able to access those drain lines without cutting through the slab is really helpful. Okay, well, thanks for bearing with me through all of that. I'm going to turn this over to Kathy Nolan and the landscape.
Thank you.
Here, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
Mayor Gilman, council member, staff, thank you for having me. I'm very honored to be working on this project with Dignity Moves and a really stellar design team. I know you've seen this. He was facing this way, and I'm facing this way. I hope that's okay with everyone.
Whatever you want.
But basically what I'm doing, I just have 4 slides up here tonight, so I'm not going to be going through my whole preliminary construction document set, but I'm going to be giving you a brief overview, kind of continuing for you to see the progress since we last presented to Planning Commission and City Council. So this is the landscape site plan that has been up a couple times, and what I have is a key legend, but I think Dylan actually kind of pointed out a lot of the key features. Of course, we've gone over the building, where the courtyard's located, the driveway parking, and then of course the ramp and walk that goes to Ventura Street, trash can and the storage, and some other similar areas. This one is a little illustrated with plant material. I will say that this is in progress, and in the last 2 days since I turned this one in, I've already made some minor changes, and the changes have to do with the fire code, the most recent one. It's been more updated for landscape late spring of this year. And as Dylan mentioned, Ventura County is very stringent. So some of the plant material that I had in my first round, I literally had to take out and not use. And I'm still tightening up what I would call the fire zoning, and the height of the plants have to be measured and how far apart they are. And it all has to do with the degree of slope. So it's a little more complicated than the old days of doing a really fun planting plan, which I kind of miss, but I completely understand why we're doing this. So maybe I'll just quickly talk about the plant material that's there. It's very generic at this point, and then I just have a couple more slides. But once again, emphasizing the communal component of the project, the sustainability, and then a little bit even into the carbon sequestration and cycling in the landscape. So as far as the plant material goes, I keep wanting to do this and thinking I've got a pointer, but I don't. I mean, the red laser light. In the courtyard, once again, in the center, is very similar to what we had before. The only difference I've made is I've eliminated some plant material that was about 3 feet tall, but because of the fire code, I'm putting something shorter. And it's just defining some of the landscape area, but I'll get into that on the next slide. The bulk of the landscape is actually up in the new graded area where the ADA ramp and path are located for various reasons. Number one, that's where a lot of new grading is taking place. And then at the same time, I wanted to provide interest and some shade on that south exposed hillside, because that's where the residents are going to be if they want to walk or go by wheelchair or walker, however, to get up to Ventura Street. So you will see a large symbol, a tree symbol. There are 6 of those, and those trees are there because we are actually having to remove 5 small oak trees as required to provide mitigation, and those are going to be replacement oak trees. The rest of the landscape on the exterior of the building, I'm entirely using California native plants, and it's become very challenging with this new fire code, but I'm doing it. I wanted to mention that. We already talked about the pet relief area. It actually was larger, but I'm also looking at sustainability measures. I actually made it a little bit smaller. A lot of that has to do with maintenance and then even water use. So that's been a big component in my thought process. Let's see. Oh, I'm not sure if you can tell, but if you look to the right side of the building, there's kind of a strip, it looks kind of dark, of dark plant material in a row. And then also there's a row right parallel to Montgomery Street at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Those happen to be our 2 bioswales. Dylan spoke earlier about capturing the roof water. It was going to be taken out through a system. We're also going to be installing some landscape drainage in the courtyard. It'll most likely be tied into that same system, but the water will go out. It's processed through a bioswale, which is a conveyance mechanism, but it's planted, it's not concrete. The plants will actually help filter the water, slow it down, spread it out, and then it'll be allowed to sink back into the soil. If there's a lot of it, who knows, it might make it down to the aquifer. Although that area does have a high water table, I was thinking of what Councilmember Whitman was talking about. So the exterior landscape is very, very simple. And now I'm going to go to the next, and you feel free to ask me a question. I've only got 4 slides, so if you need me to stop, I can.
That's great.
Yeah. Okay, so the next one now, here's the courtyard. And you've seen this before, but I've just made some minor modifications. But once again, inspired by a cloister garden, a Mediterranean cloister garden. It's a place to gather. And what I have tried to do, and I know Dylan mentioned this earlier, is to not only provide, say, larger communal areas like the dining area, but also some tables and chairs, or even the lawn area if you wanted to. Leslie, be alone to some degree. So I try to allow for, kind of or I guess what I would call flex use. And we are doing a site furnishing plan for the landscape or for the courtyard area. And once again, that'll be probably handled through Dignity Moves, the program they're doing where the items will be donated. But we will be recommending the products. And I also wanted to point out that I am making sure that everything's laid out so that it's all ADA accessible. But they're also, I'm proposing to be not mounted to the ground. So in the event they needed to move the tables around for, let's say they're having a barbecue or whatever, a party, you could do that, but you'd have a plan and you could put them back in place. So I've even since I did this, added a few benches. There's some movable chairs. There are 4 planters at about 18-inch height. They're going to have a cap on them. It's not a formal bench, but you sure enough could sit on the edge of it if you wanted to. And then, and the same thing with the raised beds, the vegetable beds, which I'm not, we're just going to show it on the plan. We're going to include it in our hydrozone plan and the water use, but we will certainly let the residents select what they want to do there.
Kathy, before we move on to the next slide, the grass area.
Keep going?
No, go back to the.
Oh, the back. The first one?
Yeah. The grass area. Nope.
Oh, the
more.
one I was on.
The one you were on, yes.
Oh.
Don't change. The grass area that you're showing.
Yeah.
Meeting Wheelo?
So here's where I'm at with it.
Water efficiency landscape ordinance is what I'm referring to.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we talked about this last time I was here. Basically, you can use any plant material you want as long as you stay within the boundaries of the allotted water use. And that's all based on the size of your property, your evapotranspiration rate, which is based on, the area where you live. And you put all these calcs together, it'll spit out an answer that you are only allowed to have a certain amount of water. So I might have to make a couple of adjustments, but really the only two areas will be the pet relief area and this lawn that will be kind of a medium high water use. Everything else is low use, except for the vegetable garden, which is a special landscape area, but it's got its own designation. So I feel fairly confident. I've done a lot of projects that will be fine, but if I do have to make an adjustment, make it a little bit smaller, I might have to.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to be doing that probably this week. It's on my schedule. I'm actually going tomorrow to the public workshop to get my soil samples for the MWILA. So the other thing I wanted to mention too is about the pavers that we have selected. You can see that kind of a beige or tan area. So we just yesterday actually agreed on what the paver would be. And I'm actually really excited about this. We're using a manufacturer located in Ventura County, actually in East Oxnard. The pavers are actually manufactured there. So that's really going to be cutting down on, transportation. They actually have a quarry there. We will also be purchasing our CMU block, which we'll be using as the base for our 4 planters and then the vegetable garden raised beds. They are actually just printed this out today, so I'm a little rusty. I'm opening up my package for the language. Give me a second here. Well, hopefully I've got it. I even brought the fire things just in case I got quizzed by somebody. But now I need to put my glasses. Let's see here. Oh, here we go. So they call it it's carbon kind rated, and it's a reduced carbon material. Let me just take a look at it. So I got the numbers. So basically the average like CMU block puts out I think it's per, what do they have it, per cubic yard, or I think it's per, well, don't quote me on this, but I think it's per cubic yard, but it's like 244. And then the block that we're going to be prescribing is a reduction of 34%, which is 160. So they are actually using recycled materials in a lot of this. The type of mixtures with the Portland cement has less carbon. And I'm kind of generalizing here because I just got this today, so I'm not as well versed as Dylan is on the items he did. But I can certainly, if anybody wanted more information, I'd be happy to offer it. But I'm just excited that we are getting to use a local company, manufactured here. It does have a lifetime warranty, and it's all ADA compatible. And I think I mentioned earlier, we will be adding some a landscape drainage system to the area to take the water off, and that water, once again, will go back into the landscape. Let's see. Just a quick sample of the planting. There's the courtyard planting with the olive, and then we have 4 planters with dwarf citrus. My plant palette became very reduced. I actually have a couple more plants than this on it, but because of the fire code. But you can see some native plants for zone 1, and then zone 2, and there's 3 other ones. The bioswale, I still might even have to make a couple cuts on it as I'm reviewing the requirements. But those are the plants that will actually act to help filter the water and slow it down. And then some screening shrubs. Of course, I could have put the oaks, but I think we all know our coast live oak, and we have that specified. Up in the right-hand corner is the lighting. So in the courtyard, actually, I should go back real quick and just say you can see kind of an X across the seating where the picnic tables are. Those are architectural string lights, sometimes called fiesta lights. And it's the almost little bell-shaped one up on the top right. So these all meet dark sky friendly requirements. So it does have a shroud on the top. The one to the right is the bollard. They're both in a matte bronze, and then the step light, unfortunately, I didn't have a picture of it with matte bronze. It's showing a black, but it will be matte browns also, and those are going to be located in the steps going from the ADA axis and the path up to Ventura Street. And then I wanted to go over just the sustainability measures briefly. So if we start at the top with our site design, and we have that we're protecting, and I should have said this at the beginning, part of the magic of this site is the quantity of oaks that we have. It's basically we have an oak woodland. So it's not only making it very private for the structure that we're building there, but I think it's going to be beautiful, and I think we're fortunate to have them there. And then the sensitive siting of structures and materials, minimal grading as best we can on this project, the stormwater capture and the bioswale. And then we have water, soil, and climate regenerative design strategies. So minimizing the heat island effect with, the shade trees and the structures that we're using. The climate appropriate plant material, Mediterranean and California natives, so climate appropriate. We will, of course, to meet with the WHEELO requirements, have smart irrigation controller and a water efficient system. And then we're going to be building the soil sponge by any compost that we're adding to our planted area. We will have a strict mulching plan. That'll be on our defensible space and fuel modification plan. I didn't go into that in too much detail, but if somebody has a question, I'd be happy to answer it. But in addition, we have a lot of leaf litter that we're proposing to leave, and even some exposed soil areas which allow for insect habitat, and that's even included in our WHEELO document. So you can actually demonstrate that on your plans, and we will. And a little redundant, but the habitat building, the oaks, once again, the California natives, and there'll be a lot of pollinator plants. A lot of those natives will attract pollinators. And then back to the fire smart landscaping, which is huge. I also wanted to mention that, like along the driveway, for instance, we're going to have 10 feet clear on each side of the driveway, once again for Ventura County Fire Department. And then, of course, the defensible space. And then we will be including in our plans also maintenance. So for instance, now in the new code, the oak trees, this is for existing oaks, will have to be limbed up 5 feet from the top of the roof and then 5 feet away from the buildings, which in our case is, kind of the case because we're surrounded with oak trees. So we will be having all those notes in the plan. So trying to be very comprehensive about this. And then, for energy efficiency, we will be using low voltage LED lighting. And then for permeable surfaces, it'll be the bark, mulch, bare natural soil. There's the insect habitat that I just mentioned. And then for community, once again, going back to the courtyard, it's the community garden, the edible beds, the fruit trees, the small and large gathering areas. Then we've got the bike racks. And then a connection to town, to the public, to the sidewalk, and to get to transportation and amenities. And then, of course, the ADA accessible paths throughout the site. So that's my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions. Otherwise.
Any questions? Yeah.
I was particularly struck by that your statement that the site is quite beautiful. And I find that really heartening because I know that you know beauty and I know that you know natural beauty. So what I'm thinking, being a dog lover and being, popped for that quite a bit, there's a lot of dogs, and if they run through space and they happen to, either leave leavings. In other words, what I'm asking for, is there a way to push out the fence to the maintenance yard in some way that would allow a space for people to take their animals that is contained, that is not just a pet relief area, but a pet play area? Because if they're running around the space itself, things will happen. People will get upset, most likely, not necessarily. So that's all I'm wondering is there a place that people can actually take their pets that is enclosed where the pets can actually have some freedom to do what is natural for dogs to do, which is roam without a leash. And so I'm wondering, that would be, I think, very important, both for the residents and for, you know, sort of keeping peace within the site. Because if dogs are running around and, you know, people get upset if they're not dog people and
Right.
that kind of thing. So I don't know if that's possible, but I think it would be very important. And, you know, that I would like to see if that's possible. And I know that you aren't responsible for boundaries.
Yeah,
sure.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that because we've kind of, you know, talked about even in the pet relief area, like how big should that area be? And I think part of our, and I'm not saying that we won't look at it, but part of our limitations is at the grades. There's not a lot of additional flat areas to do something. And then the fencing, which, is that okay to talk about the fencing that we did? So basically, we initially had proposed some fencing. Kind of we went back and forth, and it was going to be like an iron or an aluminum look-like iron fence. And during our discussion, we go, do we really need it? Because we're not putting gates in, we're not, you know, secluding the property. And we decided that we didn't need to do it, but we are adjusting the location of the driveway. I mean, essentially, it's in the same place that you see now, but it's been widened and the angles changed. And there's existing chain link fence and a big chain link fence right now, a gate that goes into the public works yard. So there's access to drive in from that direction. So we are proposing our plans that they be reused. You know, how sustainable. We've already got it to the best that we can. So I think it would be a matter of, and there's a steep, the grade gets steep right there. So I'm not sure that we could add a larger area, but I certainly will take a look at it.
Right. And, you know, dogs don't really care about flat versus steep. They love to run up hills.
Right. I think
and
it's,
people don't need to go, if it's enclosed,
Yeah.
you know, you can just, the idea is really to give your dog some
Right.
freedom to keep them sane as well, because an insane dog, because they don't get proper care,
Right.
is trouble for everybody, especially in communal living.
You're asking for
True.
a mini dog park.
exactly.
For a mini dog park.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Thank you
I
very
love
much.
dogs too. I don't have one right now, but I've had
Mhm.
dogs over the years, so and I do love dogs. So I think it's really a matter of us looking at the access and the buildings and the public works department. Is it even possible to us expand? I'm not sure, but we'll take a look at it. And I certainly can look in the general area where we did the pet relief, and maybe we do make it. I did reduce it. Maybe I make it a little bit bigger.
I
Let's
think,
hear.
Oh yeah,
yeah, the dogs need a place to be dogs.
We got it. We heard you. We heard you.
Yeah, and I think in the interest of the workshop, Jeff Spar and I were just looking at the plans, and I think there may be an opportunity on the west side of the building to actually use the existing chain link fence along Ventura and the building
That's the
to gate. You know, that'd be a nice long 120-foot dog run down the west
There's a
side.
lot
So
of
there's
shade, too.
options. Yeah, there's a lot. Exactly.
Yeah. So
I-
we're open.
I'm noting that as a let's look into that.
We will look into it.
Okay.
We'll look into it. Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Yes, go.
So I had a question. I don't know if this is the conversation for tonight or if it's, you know, to be continued, but we had talked about having a donor wall and also having some kind of plaque or recognition for the people who were really instrumental in making this project happen, like Ruth and Betsy and you. And so where would you envision something like that going? Or has there been any discussion about that being a consideration?
You know, we haven't, and I would really want to talk to Dylan about this. I don't know if it would be something we could do on one of the exterior walls coming in. If it was, I mean, it could be made really nice to look at. Maybe like clay tiles or
great.
something.
That would
Okay,
be
great.
really
Yeah.
appreciated.
I
Yeah.
think it could look really nice.
Thank you.
and work.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for bringing that up.
Anything else?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Thank you so
I'll leave
much.
Are you want to go in? I'll set you up.
Ah, I'm just wanting to check in. So we've been at it for 2 hours. We still have some comments. Do we need a quick break and then come back? How are we feeling?
Sure.
Okay, we'll do a 5-minute break and then come right back. Check, check. 1, 2, 1, 2.
So
Hey, Larry.
I know where you were at. How did it go? I was at the school board. Of course.
Is it over now?
I don't know. I heard the presentation, then they had public speaking,
Ah,
and then I heard more, and then I left.
it's going to be so
what you
exciting.
heard, did it seem like people were more for it or in the middle or?
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you all. So we'll have any more questions from council before we go to public comments, if there are any. Maybe not. Okay, great. Let me go to my public comments here. First off, Ruth Miller, Carol Avalon, and Rachel Hunt.
Hi, I'm
Hello.
Ruth Miller, and I just want to say thank you to Dignity News and Kathy Nolan for all of your.
Ruth, will you pull your microphone down?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
I wanted to say thank you to Dignity Moves, Kathy Nolan, for all of the wonderful information they presented tonight. It gives us a clearer picture of what we have to look forward to. I think what I was struck with most is, fortunately, we didn't have anybody die from the heat this summer, and that was a real concern. And I'm looking at the project and saying, once we have that, we won't have to worry about anybody dying from the heat. We won't have to worry about our elderly, disabled, being cold, being miserable. And it's like a dream. And let's keep it moving. Let's not delay. Let's make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. Carol Avalon, Rachel Hunt, and Elena Pascarella.
Hi, I'm
Hello.
Carol Avalon. Hi. My comments may come as non sequiturs because I kept notes and they were going all over.
Got it.
So I'm a resident of the city, and I was a project manager for the build of a tiny house, a 400 square foot tiny house on Montgomery Street. I know the costs inside and out. I kept them on a spreadsheet. I know every nail, every hammer, every sewer, everything. It was not a mystery to keep that spreadsheet. And so I support this cabin village, and I would like to ask if Dignity Moves can provide a projected spreadsheet of a tiny house. I saw in the Ojai Valley News, it looked like it was 260,000 per. Maybe it was more. I don't know. The number kept changing every time I'd read it somewhere. So I'm wondering if they're going to provide that for you, a line item. That's one thing I wanted to say. The other thing, the project they're doing with the straw bale, is that a demonstration model that they're going to be using to then show other prospective clients to get business for themselves, which is fine. But if so, is the city of Ojai getting benefit financially if they, Dignity, gets business from us being the model that's spending all the money to build the demonstration model? So I'd like to know that. Let me see. Hold on. Oh, my last comment is about the people that are pushing back. And so I wanted to just say to whoever's pushing back that I'd like to ask them to search their heart and soul to feel the gratitude and appreciation for the gifts that have been afforded to them by their own life circumstances. And if they could feel into what would cause them to want to withhold the same from others. Period.
Try not to clap if you can. Thank you.
Or not to what?
I mean, I try not to clap. No, thank you so much, Carol. Rachel Hunt, please. Elena Pascarella, and then Jessica McCrae. Hello.
Hello. My name is Rachel Hunt. I'm here regarding conversations on cabin village placement and to people who may be still in opposition and wanting this project to be delayed. This last week, there were a lot of conversations down there of people fearful that it might be killed was the word that they were using. I don't know if there's a lot of truth to that, but I still felt like it was time for me to come and extend some gratitude and tell you where we're at right now. So, dear Ojai community and honorable local leaders, I want to extend my heartfelt gratitude to our local community and government for listening to the cries of the people, including my own, regarding what was and still is an urgent need to support displaced elders, providing housing and services for Ojai's lower income residents. I speak from personal experience. I was unhoused as a youth and later again in my 20s after a car accident that took almost everything from me. I know the pain of living without a stable roof overhead, the uncertainty of not knowing where your next meal will come from, and the demoralizing feeling of being unable to meet even basic needs like a shower. But through that hardship, I was shown the deep compassion of this community. Generous, caring people stepped forward to help when I was at my lowest, claiming me from the hospital, offering me a place to recover, and giving me the stability I needed to heal, study, and work. Because of them, I was able to rebuild my life. Today I'm working at what feels like a dream job, blessed to serve at Ojai's Tent Town, a role that allows me to pay forward some of the love that once saved me. It is from that lived experience that I ask with sincerity and urgency, please let's not delay the Cabin Village project any longer. The quality of life and for some, the remaining years of our most vulnerable neighbors depend on timely action. Further debate over its placement risks wasting precious time that these individuals simply do not have. Ojai has always been a community defined by compassion, love, and care for one another. Let us continue to live those values by ensuring every resident, especially our elders, has a place to call home. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hunt. Elena Pascarella, Jessica McCrae, and then Larry Stengel.
Good evening.
Hello.
City Council, Mayor, and staff. Just want to say that presentation was beautiful and amazing, and how grateful I am that you have approved this. Although it wasn't unanimous, I don't know why it wouldn't be unanimous, but it was 3-2. And just the beauty of it all. And then I think, because I've been following this project along since it was first started, because it coincided with the ceasefire now and our dealings with the city council. So that's when I was first introduced to it. And I was always surprised, but then I guess I'm not, because this society doesn't value everybody the same. And I've just been seeing now that this is here, it's going to be here, it's going to be here. But yet there's this fear behind it, because we always have these lawsuits that come up. And so I don't know what needs to happen, but we all need to come together and somehow have talks with these people so that it won't be delayed again, as Rachel was saying, because of the Persimmon Hill people who are afraid that their property values are going to go down because this beautiful, beautiful space of humanity. And I just feel of empathy and kindness. I was looking at the photos and reading the stories about the people who do live there and thinking, what a blessing to have a place to live in peace and beauty, what we saw. And I also wanted to just mention that the Ojai is the International City of Peace. And this is an issue that shows us that we aren't the city that you say and proclaim to be, or that we say and proclaim to be. And I was thinking that to solve the homeless problem in the United States, it's $30 billion. What do we spend in our military a year? $950 billion a year. And right now, it's 2 years since the genocide has been going on in Palestine. And so I'm sitting there seeing this beautiful building and structure and these worries that we have about the dog park. And I'm thinking that we're still murdering people all over the world in the name of our country with my tax dollars. And I am so grateful that you're going to put this project forward, because it's all connected. The fact that you're arguing about little pieces of money when we're spending $950 billion a year on military shows us that our priorities are not in the right place. Free Palestine.
Thank you. Jessica McCrae, please, and then Larry Stengel.
I just wanted to get up here and say I'm so proud of you guys. thank you so much. This project is amazing. I know I want to say thank you to the state of California for giving us the money to bring this to life. I know it would probably, when we got granted the money, the first thought was, okay, let's get it done. And you all took the time to push back a little, to ask questions, to push for Ojai's values, and push these brilliant people to build something that totally represents us. It is wonderful for the environment, the way that they're building it. It's something that people can look at and model after. One of our biggest concerns is fire safety. It's amazing, the products that they're using and bringing in and being inventive with. It's amazing. And then our morality and value to care about are people that have the least in our community, and we're giving them a little bit of comfort, and I think that's amazing. And I just want to say thank you to all of you, and I'm so proud of you. One last thing is, I know when you look at social media and what our community is talking about and what they're concerned about, there's a very small portion that are still upset about where it's at, but most people feel that that's the right spot for it. The other thing that people are very concerned about is the budget and how much it's costing. And I think all that concern could be helped to be eased if it was very, very transparent when we get there. It sounded like there's a lot of bids still out, so I don't know if you know what the costs are exactly yet. But as soon as you do, I think it should be in the newspaper. Let everyone in the community know what this is costing us, and what the costs are and what it's bringing. It's beautiful. It's amazing. And I thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Larry Steingold and then Marcy Tosher.
Good evening.
Hey.
Hey. Decent looking project. It's going to happen. Couple things. Solar. I mean, since it's all electric and it's showing 8 solar panels, and the state requires solar, is there some way to increase the solar coverage? Because if there's only 1 meter and these people don't control the utilities, if they turn the heat on and the windows are open or the air conditioning is open, we're electrifying the rest of the city. So if you've never been in apartments where utilities are included, great. If they're included, you don't care. And that's just the nature of the beast. The handicapped access, the ramp. My wife's an occupational therapist. I know what it's like to be in a wheelchair. I hope some of you have never been in wheelchairs. If you have been, that's going to be a horror show. Okay, I mean, it looks like Le Mans. It's up and back and up and back. It's like going up to 33, all right? And I don't know if you're on a wheelchair, but if you're going up, it's, what is it, 1 inch every 1 foot, I believe? That's a tough road to hoe. Landscaping, looks very nice. Is the house next door going to be shielded by all the landscaping? Will they be able to see the apartment house, the housing project, whatever you want to call it, this permanent living? Because they shouldn't see it from next door, because if this was an apartment house, people would want coverage, landscaping, and you would require it. You have a neighborhood, a residential neighborhood, just like if they were to sell the bowling alley. They'd want more landscaping. Why? Why not? They don't have a sound wall. Fencing. Should there be fencing? Dogs should be on leashes. Either that or get rid of the leash law. Just saying. And other than that, I mean, the cost, you've got you've got 3 things coming up that you've got to figure out. You've got the swimming pool, which is, I don't know what's city's obligation is going to incur. You've got some apartments or units you're trying to acquire over at OUSD for housing for employees, maybe. And you've got this. So between them all, look at what the number's going to be, because these are all new numbers. These are all added budget numbers that will be forever. The pool's going to be forever. This is forever, because now you're going to have a housing group or something, and you're going to have apartments for employees. Whether you own them or rent them, you got to cover the expenses. So these are all going to be expenses. It's a bottom line number. That's your problem. Congratulations. and your problem and our problem. But that's the numbers. So please be cognizant of that, those permanent line item numbers. I mean, this is going to happen. It's needed. You know.
Thank you, Mr. Stengold. Marcy Tosher, please.
She's got a great idea. Percentage of the action.
Good evening.
Hello.
Thank you so much for spending, I don't know how many hours, has anyone kept track of the hours that have been devoted to this? And it's very exciting to see everything coming to fruition and materializing, and it's just a great project. I think it's interesting that a lot of excuses are coming up now. We need to do this or that, and in my mind, delay equals death. And I can think of a very prominent national politician now who that's their MO. You delay, you delay, you delay till it dies. I don't want to see that happen. I find it really interesting that everybody went over so concerned about the fire safety aspects and how safe it will be and this or that. And you've got people over here living in tents that will go up like Roman candles. You know, God forbid we get another event. So I think everyone needs to search their hearts and feel good about doing something positive and saving people and helping them, because what's the alternative? I haven't heard one proposal for an alternative to having people living in tents. Eventually, you're going to have to do something. Does that mean you're going to just keep maintaining the tents where people are at risk of dying because of the heat? Or are you just going to disassemble the tents and just let them go wherever? And everyone will be back in Libby Park or wherever they can find a spot. That's not reasonable either. I think we have to do the humane thing and go forward with this. I also want to say that to me, I looked at it and it looks like the Artesian. Where senior citizens are paying a fortune to live there, and I don't know anyone that lives in that neighborhood that's complaining about, oh, I have to look at the Artesian. You know, it's horrendous. So our friends here entitled to the same quality of living that the people who have been fortunate enough to be able to cobble together money over their lifetimes and haven't had any unfortunate occurrences. They can afford to live in the Artesian. So, you know, let's do the right thing here for Ojai, and let's have a heart and let's move on. Let's do it. Thank you.
Thank you. That's my last public comment card. Anything online?
I do not have any raised hands, Mayor.
Oh, here we go.
Oh.
Nope, come on up. Thank you.
Good evening, Doug Labar.
Hello.
I'm really impressed with what's been done so far in this. It's really commendable. And I was really encouraged by learning that tonight is going to be a review of the design rather than a consideration of whether we're going to be building some housing on the site that we're talking about. But from a general contractor's point of view, I just made some notes about insulation. Seems like getting something from Australia right now with the tariffs could be prohibitive. I don't know what the cost differences are going to be between that or using hemp panels, or also what I've used an awful lot is denim insulation, which has borax in it. So you try to light a match on it, it's not gonna, it doesn't burn at all. I was disheartened to see that there's no food prep available. I see that the landscaping has raised beds for growing food, but there's no way to prepare the food or any place to prepare the food except in your own little place. So it just seems a problem. In the design, it shows the bike rack right in front of the trash enclosure, but the trash enclosures, I'm sure, are going to have to be accessed by E.J. Harrison. So I don't know, what are they going to move the bike racks in order to pull out the stuff? So that seemed like a design problem. I was wondering if there's going to be fire sprinklers throughout, or will it not be required? In the security in the office, I don't know if there's going to be 24-hour management there, because there are no beds for the security personnel, so I was wondering about that. And a big ticket item that I noticed, that there was a little note that there are no furniture plans included in the construction. So when the construction is finally bid and it's completed, there won't be cabinets, the appliances, sinks, toilets, beds, refrigerators, microwaves. All that will add up to quite a bit. So it'd be nice to know what that is.
Thank you, Mr. Labar. Appreciate that. Any more questions?
I do. Oh,
Yeah, go.
ahead.
Yeah.
I was just thinking from what Mr. Labar said. So he was saying like sinks and all of that stuff, that's included, right? We're talking about like microwave ovens, beds, desks.
Yes, that's correct. The place to really clearly understand this is between sheet A 2.1 and the following page, which is the furniture plan, and items that show up on A 2.1, that's in the base bid. So and you can think about it really as things that are connected to the infrastructure of the building. So the toilets, the sinks, the cabinets, the counters, all of that's in the general contractor scope. But the loose furniture, the beds, the desks, etc., is considered furnishings, which will be provided outside the general contractor scope.
Well, taking Ms. McCrae's notion about transparency, it does seem to me as we start to understand what everything's going to be costing in a very definite way, we should publicize, here's what the needs are, what the cost is going to be, and express it to the community every step of the way. I don't think anybody objects to that, but it might be that there's a community effort on these things. So, yes, please.
And also, I think in our last meeting, too, we talked about how some of the community effort could also be donations, fund drives, things like that. It doesn't, I think we could think about it in, donate some furniture, have your name on the donor wall. I think that there could be ways that we could rally people who really care and want to get involved to contribute.
And just to jump on that too, that using Mesa as a kind of an example, they are constantly fundraising. And so it's a different model than what we have, but it's the appetite is there in the community to want to help. I'm seeing that pretty clearly.
Well, and I don't know too, maybe Dignity Moves you could answer, but I know, correct me if I'm wrong, in the Thousand Oaks project, didn't IKEA step up and furnish everything for, and other projects as well?
Every project that happens in the community, the community gets involved.
Yeah.
It's a part of our ethos in Dignity Moves in terms of philanthropy and also bringing the community around. Once it starts to get real for the community starts to galvanize around the project. And I can't think of anywhere more than here that's going to do that. And the maker community that's here that gets involved, so much creative energy that's here that's pent up around this project that will really come in. So I feel really confident about who's going to come into this project and help take it over the finish line and make it beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah. And if I might ask, I'm not trying to project something that's not there, but I am sensing a lot of pride in this project. And I'm wondering, is the amount of effort in the details, is it normal in the projects you do, or is there something extraordinary about this one? Yeah, please, anyone?
Are we special?
Yeah, are we special?
Is Ojai truly exceptional? Tell them.
No, but
can you vote
tell the truth. Tell the truth
for us.
Yeah, well, as the architect, I'll say, the credit really goes to the Dignity Moves team. I think their entire model for existence is incredibly important and admirable. And so as the architect, I'm very proud to be working with them and helping to deliver on this vision. But yes, I think any good architect is proud of their work and very thoughtful about decisions. And I'm a big believer that every project is unique, and it's a unique set of circumstances around the community and the site and the people using it and the priorities. And so, yeah, I think this is an incredibly special project. And has the potential to really be a model for other municipalities and other folks looking to build affordable housing in a sustainable way.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Mr. Whitman, you had a question, I think.
Yeah, not for the architect.
Not
Okay.
for me, okay.
So it's as much a comment as a question, but I really think we should have, tonight we heard a lot of places where, not contract provided. We learned a new abbreviation,
Mm-hmm.
FOI.
Mm-hmm.
So I really think, we need a report that lists all those FOIO,
Mhm.
things and other things that just aren't covered by the contract that we know we're going to have to use, so that, we know how much our out-of-pocket expenses are going to be when we open the place up for operation.
Mm-hmm.
What goes into that, and of course there can be projections about the likelihood of donations on certain things, but I think that actually itemizing all those things will spur donations, because there will be people
Mm-hmm.
who are maybe more tuned in to a specific need
Mm-hmm.
than they are to maybe just the broad concept.
Agreed.
And I'd also like to see a similar kind of report, something similar to the detail that we had today, to address the operational costs that, once we do open, every year we're going to have that operational expense. We should know, what that is, and I'd like to see, granular detail like we got tonight. Very pleased with
Mm-hmm.
what we did learn tonight in terms of, how much information we received. But the operation of permanent supportive housing is pretty intensive. I mean, just in terms of all the issues you have to address, because behind the concept is that there's people that have needs above just having a roof over their head. So, how are we supplying for those needs? We take them in as tenants. We have some degree of responsibility. So I'd really like to see a comprehensive report. Would help us, allocate our costs for other types of projects, to know,
Mm-hmm.
that this one's on the horizon and we're going to be experiencing these expenses.
We had a preliminary report, but probably another one's due. We could look at that again and see. We've had more costs related to security and things like that. So it was a while ago that we saw that.
Right. The
Mhm.
other thing that you're going to see is that you're going to be eligible for funding that you're not eligible for currently, because we're not a shelter, we're not
Mm-hmm.
a housing development, we're just a sanctioned homeless encampment. So we can do that. We can bring that back, looking at other permanent supportive housing
Mm-hmm.
developments and their expenses. As the council knows, we've set aside in the ERF grant $500,000 for the first 4 years of operation
Mm-hmm.
to offset any expenses that we may have. But we have been talking with Dignity Moves and the county, and they both have been very emphatic that there are funding streams that will become available to us once this is up and running.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Whitman, I just only want to add, even in my nonprofit, we get grants. Even if we get them every year, we just can't count on them. We have to expect that someday we won't, possibly, and we've got to act accordingly, right? So be prepared.
I think it's got to be in your
Yep.
budget,
That
the
does.
possibility that
It
we
does.
are going to be paying those things. Because,
So that's just prudent. Mm-hmm.
At the same time that you identify granular needs and
Mhm.
maybe attract people, we also have the circumstance where we have, the vote carries forward and we open up, we're paying for it. And then that becomes a little bit harder for somebody to say, this is a great need and I should be paying for it, when the city's already paying for it.
I hear you. Ms. Bank, please.
Yeah, I was wondering if there has to be, when he said with the office security, like there's no beds in the one unit, is there something, because we're dealing with people that some of them have mental health issues, that we have to have an on-site person 24/7, like with apartment buildings, if there's so many units, you have to have a manager?
There's no requirement like that. What you are going to find, and this is what we've begun the negotiations on and discussions with an operator. Some operators prefer to have a unit for their manager. And so that is something that we may have to consider to tweak with the design. There may be a need for an on-site unit as part of making it desirable for someone to manage.
Or even if it's something, in the beginning to get everybody settled and know how the routine is and all of that, better to be,
Well, I think on that end, the benefit that you have is you've got a group of folks that are kind of have the drill and the routine down, because, the group that's in OTT now, barring any episode or issue or instance, is going to be the base for this project.
But just keeping in mind that any time, and I just think, any type of change can trigger something. So I think it would be best to have it all dialed in so they're successful in the transition.
Totally agree.
And not move over and have a crisis where they need to be removed or,
So to that end, that's also why we've been able to tap into the ERF grant fund early for the case managers, the two from Help of Ojai and from Ventura County Behavioral Health, because of that transitioning over. And that's how we were also able to pay for Amy Weiss from it as well. That was also seen as part of that effort. But I hear what you're saying, and I agree with you. We could be coming back to you as we have more talks with operators about maybe we need to dedicate a space for someone to live there as part of the manager of the site.
Also, the candidates to be there have to have some level of self-sufficiency. So if there's extreme need, they're not a candidate for this project.
That's right. If there's some that are going to be better in skilled nursing facilities and so forth. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. So the idea of retaining one of these organizations to be the operator, that's something that we've kind of, discussed vaguely, but with not, any specifics. And I understand what you just said. You're in talks to figure that out. I would love to hear from one of those operators about, what we really need to do to be successful.
That's a great idea.
And Dignity Moves, to their credit, has already started those discussions on our behalf too. So that's working with Jeff Gaddis and others. And yes, we are completely in agreement with what you're saying. And let's have an idea of who's out there, what they offer, what's the cost with that, what are their requirements.
Yeah, that's good. Anything else? Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate the idea about having the line items and the budgets and, the things that came out so that we could get to $9.5 million that we're actually going to have to put back in. So like I'm thinking solar, for instance, things like that. So it came out of the Dignity Moves budget, but there are things that we're going to have to put back in. So in some ways it's a wash, or at least we can decide if we're going to put it back in. And so I would like to have that also detailed, like what did we originally think we were going to be providing, EV charging stations, whatever, that got pulled out to hit a budget number, that, it's not a construction, so it didn't really come to discussion here. But there were some things that I think we feel strongly about. So I'd like to see those things as well. And they were briefly touched upon in the budget, but not specifically last time.
So I think I've heard a few of you say that you basically essentially want a report of what's not included, and this could help spur donations as well. And some of these items, so for instance, the solar panel one, I've already began discussions with Southern California Edison on maybe a potential charitable contribution from Edison International for that.
Great.
Because I think there are also, in addition to the community, there are some corporate sponsors that will want to be part of this project as well. So I agree, and we will do that. We'll have a list of everything that we need to figure out, either through donation or through our own funding.
So is that something that would have to wait till November when they come back, or is it something you can start working on so we could get the ball rolling? So
Yes, we have a draft list of those items. We could formalize it and bring it to you guys. You know, I would say
That would be great to see.
probably
Yeah, that'd be very
November, I think is realistic, just judging by your October meetings, which are pretty stuffed.
Mm-hmm.
November's probably,
That sounds really good.
okay.
And then we start the community conversation as well.
And that coincides with when you're going out to bid as well, so there'll be some, you know, a moment
Mhm.
with that too.
That's great. Yes, please.
I just wanted to bring up one thing and to something that was mentioned in public comments about, you know, if this is a template or a model for the Duraplanes or for any other building materials, I would imagine that any kind of publicity that this project would have would actually help us secure more donations and more sponsorships, because then that any publicity that the project has would come back to the people who made it possible. Do you think there would be any kind of financial incentives for, other than potential donations or potential recognition?
I agree with what you said. I think that you build the buzz about a project, and other companies, other products want to be a part of it. Is what I would see. It's going to be a success, and people want to be part of a success.
Right, like IKEA has had tremendous, accolades for their donation.
And I was just going to say, it may also just help the next project.
Absolutely.
You know, like pass it on, pass it forward. So.
And I want to express my gratitude for this size plan.
Yes. Thank you.
Saved quite a bit on
Eyeballs.
eye strain. Yeah.
Well, I think tell me, you got some good direction, I think. Some priorities.
Could we
Yes,
back up
please.
just for a second?
Yeah, go.
Just on that,
Yeah.
making sure, and Dylan, maybe I could have you step to the podium for a
Thanks.
moment. I'd be curious to see what's on your bid ad alternate list that you heard tonight and compare it against
Okay.
mine and Taylor's.
So for the bid alternates, I heard a sort of, I would say, a two-tiered foundation drainage system, kind of a minimum and also a more conservative, that included full perimeter drains and subslab drainage. A desire for additional DuraPanel. That was actually not a bid alternate, but a pricing alternate in the DD set. I think we will do that again. I was planning to, because frankly, the more the contractors have learned about the product, even since we got our RFP responses, I've fielded some calls where they now understand how to work with it better, how it's attached, and I actually think some of their initial numbers were high, so we may be able to afford more than we thought we could, optimistically. So there will be some bid alternates as it relates to the DuraPanel and the scope of it. I will also be making that decision probably in the 11th hour based on where we are with the testing for both fire and structural. So I would say foundation drainage, DuraPanel.
And then a couple of design things I heard, and I think that you're already working on this. We talked about the potential dog run.
Yeah, I thought that was a great discussion.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think there's some fairly low cost, good solutions there.
And then, just, it will be there, but the donor wall where let's call that out.
Yep. And we were just talking among ourselves. A logical place for that, I think, is in the breezeway, the entry breezeway, flanking the doors to the gathering space. That's, I think, would be a very natural place for a donor wall.
That is a good place for it.
So we'll probably propose that.
Smaller window in the back.
Smaller windows in the back. Yeah, that's actually happening before these, since these plans were printed.
And then just consistent with what Jeff Gaddis and I have been talking about, some of these operators may want, Jeff, you maybe want to step forward real quick. I think we do have to consider possibly, and Jeff, you want to speak to this? I know you've been talking to many mansions
Yeah,
about
I've
this.
been speaking with many mansions and some of the best in class here, and they're very interested in stepping into this. We've really set the conditions for them to want to come into Ojai, and it would be a real boon for Ojai to have property managers of that caliber coming in to manage this project. And I think Councilmember Whitman, they'll address a lot of the budget issues just in terms of their expertise, their acumen in running budgets and PSH projects. They're just the best. They're out there. And their ability to capture funds, because these property managers are really built to get grants, to track, like I do, to track funding, to be able to operate these sites ongoing, to be nimble and flexible in that way, which is what you were saying, Mayor, about is you have to be flexible and nimble, and having a property manager that not can only run the site, but can track funding and to capture that funding and offset that funding from the city having to absorb that. That's really doable with the scope of this project, this size. And you're not going to have a lot of high acuity issues on this site, meaning significant mental health issues. They will be addressed and moved on to facilities or programs where they're going to need a higher level of care. That's going to be addressed. And a property manager like many mansions can address that to make sure that the services stay within the budget, the scope of the budget, to manage the conditions, the kinds of conditions and challenges that people face, right? This is a high agency, meaning people have a sense of independence here, to your point again, Mayor. They live on their own. I mean, you're qualified to be able to mostly live and take care of yourself. I just walked around the tent village right now and how quiet it is, right? And how far we've come. That's a testament to what happens when people learn how to live together and stabilize one another and work together and co-regulate. So they're just going to come in and property management this. And I think we've got some really good candidates. So they do want someone, most of them, if not all of them, are going to want a resident manager. And we can make an adjustment with a unit or some kind of, Dylan and I have been talking about that, what that adjustment would look like to bring someone in to live on site. We've already talked to many mansions about that. They've looked at the renderings with us and gone over the plans, and they've made suggestions to us about what they'd like to see if they were the property manager. And they're pushing for, and I am in agreement with, you need a resident manager on site. That'll address the issues. You don't need security. You just need a resident manager. You won't have to run the cost of security on these sites. I've ran them. I've lived on them myself when I was younger and done it. And a resident manager would take care of a lot of those issues for you and be able to really manage that site.
That's interesting.
So it's all in play. It's already happening.
Okay, super.
I think the only thing that Dylan had proposed that maybe wasn't addressed, correct me if I'm wrong, Dylan, you had suggested that maybe you could build more things, not just adding more Durapanel, but having furniture that was built out of Durapanel as well.
At least designs.
Design, right.
Yeah, that was actually still in the context of
more Durapanel
furnished, owner furnished, owner installed. I know there's a huge maker community here in Ojai, some great craftspeople, cabinet folks, furniture builders, and this is such a simple, relatively low cost material. I would be happy to essentially donate my time to collaborate with somebody like that to have build some of these pieces.
Okay, so
in a way that's
it's a later conversation.
It's outside the scope of the general contract and these construction documents, but it's just an idea that sort of has come up in recent times.
Thank you. That's very generous.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I'm sure this is just semantic, but I'm not thinking really of a dog run, like where you have this straight run where the dogs can run.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of a place where they can explore and be who they are. And that can be a hillside, that can be whatever it is, but it's not usually a chain link fence with a straight path for a dog to run back and forth.
Yeah, I think
just want to be clear about
the area, since we're talking about it, I'm happy to pull the plan up if you want, but there's currently a chain link fence along South Ventura Street, and the building ranges from, I think, 20 feet at the south end to maybe 40 feet away from that fence at the north end, and it's over 100 feet long. So that would be fairly straightforward to fence off the two ends of that. So we're sort of using the building as one and the existing fence on the other. And that's a really beautiful sort of, we'll have to limb up the understory and
perfect.
Great area for dogs. Very low cost.
Yeah,
that's good.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, please.
You had talked about the Dura panels and having them fire rated, and you had talked about working with a company to try to get that rating. What do you think the timeline is for that?
That's a very good question. So I had actually proposed a group called Intertech, a big international testing lab that Durapanel was working with. They were supposed to have testing done before October 1st. That obviously hasn't happened yet. They ended up going with a testing lab in Australia, and I don't have the report yet. So I frankly don't know. I'm hedging here, so the drawings as they exist now are able to be permitted with the existing documentation. We're not relying on their fire resistance or their structural capacity. If we get the testing in time, we can expand the scope of the panels and reduce some of the other materials. But right now, I'm sort of planning for the worst, in which case we're using them as unrated. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I got it. Okay.
What would a test like that cost?
It's really not that much. I'm trying to recall, the Intertech pricing was in there's two levels of testing. There's a test of an individual product, and then there's the certification of a manufacturer, which is a much longer term sort of relationship they have with the testing lab. But the individual it was the low tens of thousands, I believe, for the first round of testing.
Would that suffice for us?
It's up to the building official to approve an individual product versus a manufacturer and their entire production line, to make sure that the piece we test is then repeated on the factory for the ones that we actually build the building out of. I think the building official for the city of Ojai would support that. But again,
we can see.
Yeah, we can see, and as the architect and, working on behalf of the community of Ojai, that to me crosses a line of what's responsible. I think by simply even using the product, you're really sort of breaking trail in this new straw-based construction materials, and I think that's you're doing a lot. I wouldn't recommend taking risk beyond what the regular code compliance and testing labs are providing at that point in time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you all so much.
I know, it's wonderful. Incredible.
I'm even more excited about the project. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's really incredible.
Great to be working with
Yes.
Last thing. So 2 things I wanted to mention. One is the presentation that was provided tonight will be on our landing page.
Great.
And then as more information comes forward, we'll also be putting that on the landing page as well.
I love it. Thanks for being here and coming back. All right, meeting adjourned.